Orc's Destiny by Celeste King.
In a world like this, surviving is all that you can wish for.
But surviving from one day to another isn't living. There's more to life than that.
What?
Like love, of course. Don't play coy, Eroth.
All right, you got me there. The only thing that can stop a war is love. Or isn't that what they say?
What they really say is to grab the unabridged version of any Worlds of Protheka audiobook from worldsofprotheka.com.
Promo code YouTube30. Get any digital product for 30% off and enjoy Protheka's magic at a discount.
If you enjoy this audiobook, don't forget to like this video or leave a comment and let us know what you think.
Hitting that subscribe button will keep you in the know on new and upcoming releases.
Thank you for choosing Celeste King's Orc's Destiny. Chapter 1. Savannah. 1 year earlier. The moon is full and the night is bright, making it more difficult to slip through the settlement unnoticed. I must be extra careful and use what shadow I can as I move through the back alleys, searching for any surviving humans. Those are hard enough to find when things are going well here, and things are definitely not going well. An orc's gruff voice pierces the quiet. "Anything?" "No," another shouts back. Someone else calls from farther away, and I can't quite make out what he says. The Steel Tribe orcs have come. Orcs who have abandoned their own kind, who have teamed up with the Dark Elves in order to rule over everyone else. They've come for blood. Patrolling orcs don't spare me a second glance. After years of working undercover for Old Malik, I'm good at this. Disguised as a local, I count them as they pass. Tension radiates throughout the camp as the Dark Elves draw closer. Screams echo around the camp as they begin to bypass the orcs' defences. A shrill, terrified gasp, followed by an ominous gurgle, erupts in the alley behind me. The sound seeps in my heart and slithers down my spine. I try to suppress the fear it brings. You can do this. You have to do this. I pull a blood-stained cloak from some poor dead soul and wrap it around myself to deepen my disguise, trying to avoid notice. I can see them now, shuffling around, poking at bodies and searching them in hopes of finding something of value. I almost laugh. The people here are poor and war-torn. Their demise is not worth the price of what they have left behind. I slip around the corner, but turn back to watch the orcs. They grow increasingly agitated as their search brings them nothing but broken cups and the bits and bobbles of daily life that no longer matter in death. I study their faces and mannerisms and commit them to memory. Uncovering these details is my speciality. I peek once more around the corner. The orcs are scowling, and one spits on the body of a human at his feet. They don't look thrilled. "Nothing!" One of the orcs sneers, pulling his sword from its sheath and running it through the body of the already deceased human in anger. Blood flies through the air, splattering heavy on the ground. Another orc approaches him. "Patience, we shall have our hunger fed." The first orc bares his teeth and kicks the body at his feet, sending it into the air. The elves that surround him pause and watch as it falls onto the spikes of the fence that surrounds the settlement. A cheer rouses from the elves. "Good shot!" one of the elves shouts as the others burst into laughter. The orc roars and storms off, heading toward one of the huts, violence oozing from his frame. Their bloodlust and greed have not been satisfied, which means their judgment is clouded. It gives us a small advantage. A horrid scream cuts through the attack as the elf pulls an old woman out into the open. I know these are her final moments, and I try not to look as he snaps her fragile body in two, as if she were nothing more than a crust of bread to eat with his meal. The surrounding elves descend upon the hut, their swords drawn with the excitement of fresh blood. More screams, more sport for the bastard elves. I turn and slip down the alleyway. I move, ghost-like, sliding from one shadow to another through the camp, keeping my senses open for any signs of survivors. All I find are bodies, the horror of the moments before their deaths still written on their faces. The threats and violence of the elves grow thin as I approach the far edge of the camp. I have almost passed it when I notice a movement to my right, too slight to be that of an elf. I still and use all my senses to observe the area. Best to be careful. I watch the form scurry around a tent and follow, ducking under the guide ropes holding the tent in place. I kneel near the back corner of the tent and take a moment to observe again, searching for any danger or treachery. Sure enough, I hear the hushed voices of several humans talking. I slide around the side of the hut, close enough to hear their voices clearly. Only you. What of Aidan? I'm sorry, he didn't make it, a human voice reveals. Stop crying so loud, he was lucky. We're going to be slaughtered. Another one, his voice broken by terror. They'll find us. There's no way out of here. The bastards have the whole camp covered. Another adds. I step out of the shadows. The humans notice and jerk back, some falling to their knees. I'm here to help, I whisper quickly, holding my hands up so they can see I mean them no harm. They look me up and down. I know they are wondering how I could possibly be of help, a small woman in a bloody cloak. I am routinely underestimated. It is one of the circumstances that makes me a good spy. Most think my usefulness is in proportion to my size and dismiss me as useless. Do we know of you? One of the women whispers cautiously. Probably not, but I know a way out of here. I can lead you out, I tell them, an air of friendly authority in the tone of my voice. The humans look at each other, their faces etched with fear and indecision. If they don't take my offer, they are as good as dead. They have no hope otherwise. If you want to have half a chance at surviving this nightmare, you'll come with me, I state to them matter-of-factly, and turn and make my way around the side of the tent. I pause and ensure they have followed, and am almost relieved to find they have. The responsibility now begins to take hold of me. I hope the route I have in mind is Steel Tribe and Dark Elf free. This bunch is too traumatized to fight a fly, let alone help me battle Dark Elves. I lead them around the edges of the besieged camp, through a series of secret pathways that avoid the gaze of unwanted eyes. I have travelled these passages many times to practice for this moment, but never with a group of terrified people behind me. My senses are on high alert. The shouts of the elves and orcs are only matched by the sound of human screams of pain and mercy, though it is clear there will be no mercy here tonight. The only chance for these humans lies in escaping to the forest. I follow the landmarks I observed when I first devised this escape route, and I lead the group successfully to the western edge. There is a copse of brush leading from the edge of camp to the forest here. I have used it many times to spirit, undetected into the woods, and it is how I plan to get them out. I point at the small path in the brush. It is low. You'll have to crawl. Once you make it into the forest, stand and run, I instruct. Then I catch that scent in the air. The hairs on my arms stand straight, and my hand guides itself to my knife. They are coming. Quick! I give a whispered shout. The only way to save them is to use every skill I possess to force the elves to divert. The humans do as they are told. Once the area here is clear of elves, make your way to the forest, I command. Thank you, I hear the voice of one of them from the undergrowth. I wait as the sound of approaching elves and orcs grows louder, and my heart beats faster. I know the shape of him, the one that kicked the body as he lumbers into view. I can see the frenzy and violence in his smile as he nears me. I wonder if he can see me through the haze of his bloodlust. I found a bitch, one of the orcs calls out as he points his sword toward me. I give them a second or two more to believe I'm an easy catch. They do. They slither closer, and I cower, baiting them in. It's clear from the way they are looking, moreover, they are each hoping that it will be their shaft to be the first to enter. Not today, bastards. I look an orc dead in the eye as he draws ever closer and give him a small smile. I bow my head meekly, then lift it to greet him. Limp ass, I take off. He roars in frustration. Seize her! I let them see me run into the forest. I twist and turn, weaving around the trees. I need to draw them away from the other humans without being captured. They are closer than I anticipated. It's worrying. These sacks of crap can really move. Now! The orc's voice booms. I stop dead as 2 elves appear ahead of me from the undergrowth. 2 more orcs advance from behind. It's then I know I'm pretty well screwed. By the smirks of the elves and orcs alike, they seem to have the same opinion. I reach for my knife. It has served me well over the years. I evaluate my options. It is best if I take the 2 in front of me first, so I swing myself into the air to confuse them and land in between, quickly stabbing the throat of one, then straight into the stomach of the other. Both fall to the ground, clutching at their wounds. I try to catch my breath, knowing this will not be a fair fight. I'll need to conserve my energy. Limpy slows to a stop, and he grips his sword with glee. Then, the swoosh of an axe cuts through the air, and I watch it land on the side of the elf's head. His eyes roll in confusion, and I hope the last thing he sees is the smirk on my face. I quickly look around to see the brooding figure of an orc stepping out of the trees. He's tall and lanky, covered in ritualistic tattoos that bear no resemblance to the markings of the Steel Clan. One of the orcs advances, and he runs his sword through his stomach as easily as slicing bread. Blood sprays, covering his face, and he lets it drip to the ground as the other orc falls. "I'm Daritus," he says, nodding towards me, "and I don't much care for orcs who associate with elves." I stare in awe at him as he nods to the startled band of elves before us. Now it's a fair fight. An orc seizes me, underestimating my size. I let him grab me, but my hand is still wrapped around my blade. As he pulls me close to his chest, it only takes a twist of my arm to sever his throat. He gurgles, tumbling down, and my breath rushes out of my lungs as he collapses on top of me. Daritus kicks him off of me, and I see that he's slaughtered the remaining elves. The humans. "My clan is protecting them," he says. He presses his sleeve to a cut I hadn't noticed on my upper lip. "We could protect you too if you'd like." The smile that twists his face isn't one I've ever seen on an orc before. "Or you could protect us, more likely." Chapter 2. Savannah. 1 year later. The one thing it's hard to get around here is a decent night's sleep. This morning is no different. Frantic shouts and the clamour of orcs armouring themselves aside, I didn't want to get up. In fact, I was rather comfortable basking in the warmth of my bedroll, reflecting on all that had changed in my life in the year since I had met Daritus, and he had brought me to this camp. Another clang outside stirs me from my reverie, and I think it best to investigate. It is uncharacteristically loud. After grabbing and putting on some trousers and a half-buttoned-up shirt, I pull back my tent door to reveal what can only be described as chaos. What the hell is going on? Orcs and humans hurry about in a frenzy, orcs barking orders at the humans, who all seem to have the same confused look. "Sharpen the swords now!" Yes, but... A human guides his shaking hands to the whetstone, but the orc slaps it away, grumbling, "There's no damn time now, useless!" It seems to be how the orcs handle most situations, yelling, particularly at humans. It is as if barking an order in a high volume will somehow make everything clearer. Perhaps it makes them feel useful when they have no idea what the hell is going on. Daritus isn't like that, of course. He's one of the best warriors in camp, and he gained that reputation without shouting once. Of course, if everything's gone sideways, Daritus isn't likely to be wandering around. He's gathered his men and already gotten to work. This feels like one of those situations, so I scan the camp, looking for someone aside from Daritus who might know what's happening. I spot Teruik, an orc I have spent some time training with. Teruik is in the middle of everything as always, shaking some poor human half to death. It's a standard reaction from Teruik, but it tells me it's best to look for someone else, unless I would also like my brains scrambled. so I step out into the chaos of it all to find someone less agitated than Turik. Near the centre of our camp, I find another orc acquaintance of mine, Horthic. He's not the first person to go to for intelligence, but he's possibly the best gossip in camp. That will have to do. Horthic, I call out, but the big dope doesn't hear me, so I move closer. Horthic, I call again, walking up to him. Ah, Savannah, he answers. I take it you have heard the news? Nope, that's why I'm asking you. You always know the best gossip. He smiles at that. A little flattery will get you a long way with an orc. The glorious final battle is almost upon us, he says proudly. Glorious for him, maybe. I'll be stuck in camp, though I'd love more than anything to get my knife stuck into a dark elf or two. The orcs haven't needed my services as a spy recently. What do you mean? I press. The twins have made it into the dark elf camp with the help of Caspane. We are going to back them up and attack the elf forces, he replies with the voice of an excited child. We must ready ourselves for battle. Impressive. I try not to sound bitter. It's good for everyone that the human twins have succeeded. They're heroes. We will all be heroes, Horthic shouts, startling some nearby humans. I look down at the ground. There are elves to be slain, and I'm standing next to a well, gossiping about it. Don't worry, Savannah. You have your part to play. This battle and its success will depend on each of us playing our part, he says, sensing my frustration. Yes, a cog in a well-oiled machine, Horthic. I know, it's just... I say as he cuts me off. No buts, Savannah. Now is the time. Don't let history leave you behind. And with that, he pats me on the head and walks away. It's time to roll up these sleeves. Orcs trickle in and out of the provisions tents all day. I am happy to be of aid to the war effort in some way, but I long to be going to battle with them. Unfortunately, it seems the time for spying has long passed. Now it's time for outright warfare. I wonder for a second how the others view me. Spy work and intelligence gathering is not something a person does in the open. I wonder if they just see me as busy, helpful Savannah, in charge of the provisions tent, rather than the Savannah that would rather be fighting. Hey, Savannah, a voice calls to me. I look around to see Sherbet holding a needle and thread attached to a pack. Can you give me a hand? You are so much better at this than me. Of course. I move to her side and take the pack and needle from her. Sherbet is a teacher and works with the orphans in our camp. She's not medically trained, but today it's time for all hands to help. I don't know how they manage to tear these packs so easily, Sherbet says. It's war. They have to. I look at the silly things the others have packed, remove them, and replace them with the necessities of the field, a sewing kit for starters. Not for underpants or torn tunics, but for wounds minutes away from bleeding out. Stand back, an orc roars. Warriors come into the tent and collect their packs one by one. I hope to catch a glimpse of Daritus. I haven't seen him in the frenzy of preparations, and am loath to send a friend off to battle without so much as a farewell. Luckily, his tall frame makes him easy to spot. I catch a glimpse of him at the head of the orcs, and my heart skips a beat. He stands tall and proud, a true warrior and leader ready to lead them to victory at any cost. What use is a human spy to them? I wonder. And then a plan starts to form in my head.
Chapter 3, Daritus. Every orc will have his day, his moment of glory. All paths of an orc's life lead to that moment. We are children of the war god, and his sword weaves our fate. The blood we spill is for him, and the glory of battle is his gift to us. That is the way of the orc. I feel my moment of glory in my bones, within my grasp, and stirring like a storm within my soul. I must raise my axe to meet it. I must crash into it, shattering it to pieces. I must not falter. I must rise. The burnt orange sky hangs above my head as the theater of war surrounds me. Our warriors gather in preparation for what is to come. "Daritus!" a voice calls to me. I turn to see my friend and trusted warrior Gulnak hailing me. "Gulnak, what stirs?" I ask him. "We have a problem. You better come with me," he replies. He leads behind one of the huts not far from the gate, and as we make our way around the rear of the hut, I hear the sounds of violence. The sight that greets me stabs my gut. I try to hide my natural reaction. Orcs aren't meant to be disgusted by violence against the weak. It is my shame that I've never been able to stomach it. My blood cries for glory in battle like any orc, but I have never found the glory in this. "Stop!" I yell out. "Gulnak, grab him before he kills him!" Gulnak does what is required, then steps back. The orc turns, his hands bloody, and his face consumed with anger. On the ground, a younger orc lies, his hands protecting his head from the pounding fights that have bruised and bloodied him. "What is the meaning of this?" I shout at the older orc, who turns and stares at me, his breath thick and heavy. "I am Broknar, and this piece of crap is Brokik, my son," he snarls. "And why do you beat him like a common thief?" I demand an answer, as none of this makes any sense. "He is my son to beat as I choose." The other orcs murmur to one another. Gulnak shoots me a nervous glance. He knows that I don't approve of scenes like this, but he also knows that orcs will parent as they see fit. "He is," I allow, "but you are robbing me of a soldier before battle. I demand an explanation." "He's a coward," Broknar says, lowering his head. Brakik seems to hide his face further as his father speaks those words. He'd rather read than fight. His face is always buried in a book. "Unfurl him, Gulnak," I ask. Gulnak does as requested, and pulls Braddock's hands away from his face. His eyes are red from the pain inflicted by his father. "Up," Gulnak orders him, and Brakik pulls himself onto his knees, and then slowly to his feet. "Why does your father call you a coward?" I ask him. He remains silent and closes his eyes. "Tell him," his father demands. "Speak, boy. Speak." Braddock slowly raises his head, but avoids the hateful glare of his father. "Best you do, boy," Gulnak advises him. "I said I was frightened, sir." Broknar explodes at the words. "See, I told you, a coward. Your mother is the cause of this. I always said she was too soft on you, boy, and now look at you. A freaking weakling of an orc." "Calm yourself, Broknar," I threaten. I must tread carefully. "I never said I didn't want to fight, sir," Brakik adds. I can see it in him, the fear and the defiance, the fear and the determination to fight despite it. I will take 1,000,000 men like him, afraid but willing to fight. They are more useful, more cunning than the brainless bullies like his father. And if he reads, all the better. I have learned my best tactics from books. I turn to Broknar. "Have you taught your son the ways of battle?" "Of course I have." "What do you take me for?" Broknar says defiantly. "A fool," I say, swinging my arm. My fist lands square on Broknar's right cheek. Gulnak's eyes widen as the large orc hits the ground. The orcs around us roar in approval. All they want is a good fight. Broknar roars, but a menacing step towards him leaves him silent. I turn to Brakik. "It is not fear you feel, son. It is the war god waking within you." "Really?" Braddock says, surprised. "Every orc feels this the first time they enter battle, and it is the way of things," I say. "Your father here was probably too drunk to remember his first time in battle." Broknar pulls himself to his feet, rubbing his cheek. "Gulnak, this boy will ride in front with us. Get him a good axe and horse. A warrior you will be. The war god has spoken," I command. And with that, I leave them and return to the ever-growing mass of orcs gathering. I watch them with pride at how strong a force they are, enough to strike fear into any dark elf's black, cold heart. "Horthik! Ah, Daritus!" He gestures at the troops he's organized. "All to plan, sir, all to plan. Those elves aren't going to know what hit them." "That's how we do it, Horthik," I say. "Let's step things up. We head out soon." "Understood." He salutes and returns to the older orcs, who greet his return with raised eyebrows. I march a path through the ranks of orcs, enjoying the sound of armor clattering, of orcs celebrating the joys before battle. The smell of war is in the air, and it excites me. The wash of elf blood on my face will soon be the only purpose on my mind. But first, I must get this war underway. So I push through, slapping backs and raising fists, until I reach the head of the finest gathering of orcs I have ever witnessed. I turn and look upon the sight with awe. Once more into the abyss, once more. To war! I roar out across the heaving mass of orcs, and each and every orc raises their axe in unison, and a mighty roar erupts that sends a message through the earth and to the ears of every elf that pollutes this planet. The orcs are coming. I ride proudly at the head as we set out to fulfill our destiny. It must have taken over an hour for me to the last orc to pass through the settlement gates. My Hoqueen feels like one beneath me, and I find my hand brushing over the hilt of my sword. Each and every kill rides with me. I turn to Brakik, who rides close to me. How goes it now, Brakik? He smiles. The war god is inside me, sir. I am battle ready. That's the way, my boy. That's the way. I stare straight ahead as the first sounds of battle carry over the trees to us. I embrace them as I do a woman, breathing them in. I remember Savannah, remember how we met. She was surrounded by orcs, holding nothing but a bloody knife. Our eyes met, and I knew I'd found a kindred spirit somehow bound in a tiny human form. My lips twitch. I can picture her now, scowling in the requisitions tent, longing for a battle of her own. It's time. Halt! I yell out, and the command is mirrored as it echoes down the ranks of orcs. Keep them steady, Horthic. Galnuk with me, I order. We'll lead the left flank. Galnuk and I break rank and head toward the high ground. The sound of battle grows thicker and clearer. We drive our Hoquins hard, and I enjoy the beat of hoofs on hard ground as we reach a vantage point on the hill. The sight that greets us as we look toward the battlefield shakes and stirs passion within me. A passion for honor and justice, the revenge of every orc that has fallen at the hands of the bastard elf. I scan the landscape. I memorize every hill for the advantage, every bush, outcrop, and clearing. We have come far, sir, you and I, Galnuk says. Indeed we have, Galnuk. It's good to have you by my side, I tell him. You are a warrior worth your weight in gold. He hesitates. Do you think this is the end? Tell me, Galnuk, what do you see? I see that all is not lost. I see that we have the advantage. I see an army of orcs this world might never see again, he replies. What do you see? I see the world turned upside down. I drive my Hoqueen forward. By the time this battle is done, nothing in this world will be the same.
Chapter 4. Savannah. Damn it! My anger bubbles up inside me as I watch the warriors march off to battle. Their marching feet kick up small clouds of dust that swirl and dance in the morning light. Daritus, the imposing battlemaster of our clan, strides ahead with confidence, leading the troops towards the impending battle. His tall, imposing frame commands respect even from a distance. I watch until he disappears into the horizon. As the last ranks pass by, I struggle with conflicting emotions. I'm not needed in the camp. Anyone can hand out packs. Anyone can sew. No one knows the dark elves like I do. With everyone distracted, I slip into the shadows at the back of the group and quietly follow them. The dust churned up by their heavy boots masks my presence. I become just another shadow blending into the path towards war. My feet crunch against the rough terrain as I sneak behind my armed and armoured comrades. The rhythmic clank of metal and thud of boots matches the pounding of my heart. It's not fear, although it feels similar. I've been afraid, and I swore to myself that I would never feel such terror again. This isn't fear, it's exhilaration. With a triumphant roar, one of the newer orc soldiers proclaims, "Finally, A chance to slaughter some elves. Standing next to him is a massive orc, easily twice his size, who playfully claps him on the shoulder. The veteran warrior wears an intimidating eye patch, his fingers missing and his face intentionally adorned with gruesome scars. His sharpened teeth glint in the dim light, a clear warning to any potential foes. The gruff and battle-hardened orc grunts his approval, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. "Attaboy, that's the spirit I like to see on the battlefield," he growls. The younger orc stands tall and proud, determined to prove himself on the field of war. But the older orc's words carry a warning as well. "Just don't go crying for your wet nurse once you get your first wound," he sneers. "I will end you myself." "I will bring honour to our clan," the young orc declares with conviction. The two continue marching forward together, the larger orc setting a quick and powerful pace, while the young soldier follows closely behind him, eagerly soaking up any guidance and knowledge he can from his experienced comrade. Together, we march into uncertainty, and the landscape becomes more treacherous, more mountainous. The sounds of chaos swell forebodingly the closer we get, screams of fury, roars of pain, the horrid clamour of violence unleashed. Underneath it all, I can make out the mocking laughter of dark elves, their sneering voices raised in twisted ecstasy. Their arrogance and disdain for lesser races is nearly palpable, even at this remove. It sets my teeth on edge. Rather than joining the frontline fray, I slip off to the fringes, seeking a concealed vantage point. Finding a cluster of boulders overlooking the contested valley, I crouch down and assess the roiling melee. It is a chaotic dance of combat spread below me. I watch closely, searching for any chance to aid my adopted side and turn the tide in our favour. My eyes scan the clashing figures, seeking familiar faces. There, my gaze locks onto Daritus. He's embroiled in fierce combat near the valley mouth. His tall frame is unmistakable even at this distance. The orc who once saved my life, a steadfast friend whose life I value greatly. No one fights like him. It's as though he can see his enemies' movements before they're made, as though he's fought this battle before. As I track his movement through the chaos of battle, my heart races with fear for his safety. The Dark Elves are known for their deceptive tactics, and I am prepared to abandon all caution if he is threatened. But with each passing moment, my confidence in him grows as he effortlessly takes down enemy after enemy. The elves begin to retreat, but he follows them, chasing them towards a mountain. Then inside the mountain, a cave. My heart sinks. The Dark Elves' love for caves is well known. It's a dangerous move to follow them into their nests. But I refuse to let him face this danger alone. With utmost care, I slip into the shadows and silently trail behind him. The sounds of battle grow louder, and I know I'm getting closer. And then, at last, I see him, fighting fiercely against multiple Dark Elves. He slices them down with ease until one Dark Elf remains. But this elf, Daritus, may have finally met his equal. My heart lurches with a gripping fear, its icy claws piercing through my chest. The Dark Elf he's fighting must be some kind of general. "Just give up now, you're faltering," the elf taunts. His parry cuts through Daritus's shoulder strap like it's made of string. Daritus roars back. "You know, I need a new mutt. You'll sleep with the dogs, be fed scraps a few times a day. What do you say, boy? Just roll over for me and beg for your life." He's gaining the upper hand on Daritus. I need to help. I search for an opening to attack, but the Dark Elf is too close to Daritus, his sword raised high in a menacing strike. Without hesitation, I leap from my cover. "Hey, over here!" The elf's head snaps towards me, and in that moment of hesitation, Daritus seizes his chance. With a swift and precise motion, he swings his sword and removes the Dark Elf's head from his body. The ground rumbles. Daritus rushes towards me as elves and orcs alike run for the exit. The earth beneath us begins to shake and heave. sending me stumbling backwards as the cavern convulses. My heart pounds in my chest as I try to keep my balance, but the ground lurches violently, threatening to swallow me whole. "Hold on!" Daritus shouts. A deafening crack echoes through the cavern, drowning out all other sounds of battle. And then it starts, chunks of stone and dirt raining down from the ceiling like a deadly hailstorm. I scream, but my voice is smothered by the sheer force of the cave in. The last thing I see is Daritus's face, eyes wide with alarm, before he tackles me protectively. Then darkness, the mountain swallows us whole.
Chapter 5. Daritus. Chaos erupts as the cavern ceiling gives way, crumbling rocks raining down around us. With the warrior's honed reflexes, I leap towards Savannah, shielding her slender form with my own bulky frame. A thunderous roar fills my ears as the avalanche of stone buries us in this darkened tomb. I brace myself against the impacts, curling protectively around Savannah, willing my armor and orcish constitution to withstand the onslaught. The deafening roar of the collapse slowly fades, leaving behind a stunned silence and a cloud of lingering dust. "Savannah, are you injured?" I look down at her. My body and armor bore the brunt of the impact, shielding her from harm. And for that I'm grateful. A fit of coughing precedes her shaky reply. I think I'm all right. Thanks to you." I help her to her feet, and she checks herself over. Light breaks through the rocks, but not much. "We'll need to find another way out." "The elves dig like rats," she mutters, reading my mind. "If we search, we might be able to find another way out." "Stay close. We have no idea what forces may be lurking down here," I command. Silently, she follows me through the dark collapsed tunnels. With every step, I fight back the rising tide of panic within me, determined to maintain a calm and composed demeanor as a leader should. I take a deep breath, steadying my racing heart. Together, we cautiously navigate through the dark and eerie tunnels, our senses on high alert for any potential threats lurking in the shadows. To my surprise, we encounter no surviving dark elves. These powerful beings could easily move the heavy boulders blocking our way with their sorcery, yet they seem to be conspicuously absent from the scene. Perhaps the cave-in that caused this chaos has also claimed their lives, or maybe their magical abilities have been weakened in some way. One can only hope. Wait! Savannah reaches in her pack, searching for something. A small lantern. The metal is a bit dented, but the candle remains snug inside. She lights it and sets the supplies back in her back as I hold the tiny lantern aloft. "You're always prepared." She smiles. "Someone has to be." With the candle lighting our way, we find a few surviving soldiers and several dead elves. As the last rumbles fade, an eerie silence descends over our small group. We are ensconced in a narrow tunnel, utterly cut off from the chaos above. "We'll go forward," I command. Deeper into the cave. 2 orcs exchange looks, but I ignore them. We won't be moving those boulders above us anytime soon. Going deeper is our only chance to find another way out. Savannah's breathing emerges in ragged gasps as the shock settles in. Her eyes are wide with disbelief. I attempt to distract her with a smile. "You're far away from the requisition tent." "Sorry." In the tunnel's gloom, Savannah looks at me with anguished eyes. "You could have escaped if not for me," she chokes out. "I'm so sorry." "You saved my life." I shake my head firmly. "The only thing that matters now is finding a way out," I reply, steel in my tone. I will not indulge misplaced guilt. "But," she protests weakly. Taking her hand, I meet her gaze. "I would make the same choice again. Gladly." My words seem to hearten Savannah. "You're right. We will escape this or carve our own way out." The orcs with us endorse this sentiment with cheers, and with this renewed spirit, we press on, our eyes gradually adjusting to the gloom and flickering candlelight. The smooth walls and arching ceilings that remain betray craftsmanship far beyond Orcish stonework. These must be dark elf tunnels. How long have they been on this planet, plotting against us? It's an ill omen, but also a potential path to freedom. Wish the bastards would have stayed in the caves. I hide my own flicker of doubt. We may wander long in this labyrinth, cornered like rats. But I set my jaw, emanating surety. For the other's sake, I cannot falter. Somehow, some way, I will lead us back into the light. "What do you think happened?" she asks as we walk. "I can't believe they do this on purpose. What made the cave collapse?" "There were rumors of a dark portal, and I think they may have found it," I muse. "Of course, you would know more about those rumors than I would." "I might," she allows. She doesn't seem keen to share. I grunt, readjusting my axe and leading the way. Faintly at first, I hear what sounds like voices echoing ahead. I signal Savannah to douse our candle and we creep forward. Around a bend, we find the source, a cluster of my soldiers, some trying to shift rock while another lies pinned by a fallen boulder. His face is twisted in pain, but alive. Thank the ancestors. "Steady there, soldier, we'll get you free," I call out, rushing forward with Savannah. The orcs with us rush to help. Together, our combined strength helps lever the boulder just enough for him to drag his leg clear. He hisses in pain but waves off aid. "I can still walk," he grits out stubbornly. Examining our meager party, I see my soldiers looking to me expectantly amidst the gloom. Their courage warms me. "Bind wounds and prepare to march," I order. "Stay vigilant for threats." Along the cracked wall, a torch remains lit, untouched by the collapse. I grab it and hold it high as we move cautiously into the snaking tunnel. I don't want to alert elves to our presence, but at this point, falling into a crevice is a more pressing concern. Our steps echo along the walls as we continue, and the air grows stale and thin. But we advance steadily, undaunted. "Tight formation," I order, not that we have any other choice. The walls grow more narrow the farther we travel. I will take point. Savannah, watch our rear. Trusting her keen senses for unseen threats, I take the lead and forge ahead into the stale darkness. Occasionally, distant rumbles filter through the stone, haunting echoes of the ongoing battle above. The war is not yet won. It underscores our urgency to push on and rejoin our embattled comrades. But the smooth tunnel walls provide no handholds, no branching exits. Only one grim path ahead, like the gullet of some giant beast. Pressing on through the monotonous tunnels, we encounter a few side chambers, abandoned resting areas, and caches of weapons, evidence that these passages serve some military purpose for the elves. "Raid what you can carry," I order as we pass. Eventually, the path splits before us into two shadowy tunnels. Choosing at random, I direct our group down the smaller, less worn passage. If luck is with us, it may lead towards freedom. If not, I mark our path as we walk, so we can find our way back and try the other tunnel. We will find our way out. We proceed cautiously in single file, the narrow space forcing tighter quarters. Tension rises palpably. Each step and breath seems amplified in the oppressive silence. It's impossible not to imagine dark elf patrols around every bend. If my men were in better shape, I'd hope for one. An elf put to my axe might reveal a way out, but none of us are in any condition to fight now. Glancing back, I see my people bathed in the torch glow. Fatigue shows on their faces, but determination shines through. Braddock, the young orc, looks braver than his father could have ever imagined. I offer an encouraging nod before moving forward again. I can sense Savannah's wariness as she guards our rear. Her head swivels ceaselessly, eyes peering into the shadowy tunnels branching off ours, alert for any sign of movement. One hand never leaves her knife hilt, ready to draw at the first hint of danger. She embodies tense vigilance, prepared to face whatever malevolence might emerge from this sunless place. I take comfort knowing she watches over us. Up ahead, I spot the faintest gleam of light beyond a curve in the tunnel. Could this indicate a way out? But an instant later, my soaring spirit plunges. Echoing up the passage comes the tromp of boots and guttural voices, the harsh speech of dark elves. So close to potential freedom, but now escape seems unlikely without a deadly confrontation. I turn and gesture urgently for silence. Pressing against the wall, we wait, barely daring to breathe.
Chapter 6. Savannah. Daritus leads us forward through the increasingly claustrophobic tunnel. The darkness presses in, smothering our torchlight. We're silent, not wanting to further awaken the darkness to our presence. Ahead, a ruddy glow beckons. Not sunlight, but the flicker of torchlight. The tunnel opens into a massive cavern in various states of collapse, revealing sprawling, well-appointed quarters and tunnels. We've stumbled upon some ancient complex of the Dark Elves. We freeze as a lone elven guard emerges from a side passage, his lithe silhouette etched ominously against the torch-lit cave walls. He has not seen us yet, but it's only a matter of time. Daritus signals for silence, his intent clear. We must take down this sentry swiftly before he can raise an alarm. Our situation is desperate enough without a horde descending upon us. The orc with the broken leg stumbles, and a rock skitters across the tunnel. "Who dares?" the elf snarls. His arms reach back, pulling for magic. He flings them towards us. And nothing. His magic is gone. He calls for his brethren, and they come, but not with the usual annoying, sneering countenances of the Dark Elves. They look afraid, nervous, strange. It is as if these elves have been sapped of their powers, though I know not how. An advantage we sorely need. Without warning, Daritus charges forward, drawing the guard's attention front and centre. As the elf turns to meet the new threat, I slip up swiftly from behind, my dagger striking with viper speed. I aim for the vulnerable backs of his knees, slicing deep. As a human, I lack the strength to kill a dark elf outright, but I can hamstring and incapacitate. The guard cries out and crumples as Daritus finishes him off. Our brief struggle alerts more guards. Chaos erupts as a squad of elven warriors rush into the chamber, blades drawn. "Into formation!" Daritus calls, forcing his men to think tactically. So much for stealth. Now a deadly confrontation is unavoidable. We form a tight ring and meet their ferocious assault head-on. The narrow tunnel they emerge from bottlenecks their numbers, preventing them from overwhelming us completely. It's the only thing preventing them from overwhelming us completely. If they had magic, this would have been over before it started. We are grossly outmatched and tire rapidly beneath the endless barrage. Blood saturates the stony floor as injuries mount. Our little ragged troop falls as the elves launch wave after wave. We cannot endure this onslaught much longer. "Fall back, the side tunnel," Daritus calls. A bottleneck works both ways after all. If we can escape this antechamber, we can better control the engagement. Blocked into the tight side tunnel, the battle grows increasingly desperate. Wave after wave of elves push forward until we stand knee-deep in gore, exhausted and outnumbered. My heart lurches as one by one, Daritus's brave soldiers fall protecting our rear. Each life lost is a new gash across my soul. "I said fall back," he growls, lunging towards me. In a split second, I think his axe is aimed for my head, but it falls directly behind me. My feet slip in the blood. "I'm trying," I shout, brushing off my near-death experience. But seeing his troops slain triggers something in Daritus. With a primal roar, he becomes a whirlwind of vengeance, striking down any elf that nears our dwindling numbers. I fight just as desperately at his side, all technique forgotten. There is only frantic ferocity and the need to survive long enough to honour the fallen. The elven onslaught drives us farther down the tunnel, bodies piling around us. But Daritus fights like a mad demon, his great sword cleaving foes nearly in half with each swing. 3 elves rush him at once. With a roar, Daritus kicks out, sending one crumpling. He catches a second sword on his bracer before grabbing the elf and savagely snapping his neck. The third hesitates. It costs him his head. One by one our comrades fall. An elf's blade narrowly misses my neck, instead shearing through my leather armour and biting flesh. I cry out but retain my feet, whirling to retaliate. My dagger finds his eye before I lose my balance, sheer willpower keeping me upright. Smelling blood, the elves close in for the kill. I brace myself, determined to die on my feet facing the enemy. But Daritus is suddenly there, hauling me behind him protectively. Bodies litter the stone at our feet, but still the elves keep coming, endless and merciless. Step by step they force us back, their swords ringing against Daritus's blade as he shields me. Snarling in defiance, he sends elf after elf to their grave, though blows glance off his armour in turn, slowly wearing him down. But his eyes blaze with reckless fury. He will make them pay dearly. It's down to us now. Daritus renews his assault with a vengeful roar. But as the last elf falls beneath his sword, a coward's blade flashes out, slicing through the back of Daritus's left arm. Sinew and muscle part wetly. Rather than fall, Daritus switches his sword to his other hand and ends the elf with a sweeping, decapitating strike. Silence falls, broken only by his harsh breaths. Around us lies pure devastation and scores of lifeless, pale forms. Unbending will alone keeps Daritus on his feet. He has single-handedly carved a swath through the elves' ranks that will haunt their legends. But as I desperately try to bind his mangled limb, dread clenches my heart. Can he endure such a grievous wound? The last elf falls and I rush to Daritus's side. "Hold still!" I cry out, seeing the ruin of his left arm. Flesh and sinew hang grotesquely as blood courses down. "Let me bandage you." Daritus sways, face gone pale green beneath the gore covering him. Still he rasps stubbornly. "It's nothing, just a scratch." "This is no scratch, your arm." I swallow hard, blinking back tears as I try to examine the horrific injury. Despite my efforts to brace the dangling limb, he hisses in pain. I immediately stop, afraid of worsening the mutilation. Daritus looks ready to collapse, though he locks his knees defiantly. "We must get you to a healer," I urge desperately. "Before more elves arrive, please, let me help." Daritus shakes his head doggedly. "We need to find the way out. A healer can bandage me once we're out of this damned cave." But his face is drained of colour, and fresh blood trickles down his fingers. Daritus sways slightly on his feet. With no more battles left to fight, his enormous will finally gives out. Eyes rolling back, he collapses to the bloody ground with an almost grateful sigh, the frenzy at last releasing its grip.
Chapter 7. Daritus. The thunder of footsteps echoes down the tunnel as the rescue party arrives. Their torches cast flickering shadows on the cold stone walls. I can barely make out their forms through the haze of pain that clouds my mind. I must have collapsed. I blink away dark spots, pushing myself to wake. Savannah is still crouched protectively in front of me, clutching her blood-stained knife. "Just try to relax," she says gently, almost softly, which is in sharp contrast to current state. Her eyes are wild, darting towards each new arrival, ready to strike if they pose a threat. I try to reassure her with a gentle touch, but my body feels heavy and numb. Finally, a rescue party breaches the tunnels, cutting down a few dark elf stragglers in the process. "About time," I croak. I know these warriors, my comrades in arms, but their faces blur together as they lift me onto an improvised stretcher. "Easy," I say. Each movement sends fresh waves of agony through what remains of my left arm. I bite back a scream. Not in front of Savannah and my men. Never. As they carry me outside the cave, Savannah remains close by my side. I'm fine. I'm fine. I try to reassure her, but my voice is weak. Her presence is the one point of light in this nightmare. The stretcher jerks and sways as the rescuers carry me back to our stronghold. Each movement sends fresh waves of pain through my maimed limb. One of the young warriors, Kelmir, leans over me as they walk. The tide turned after the mountain fell. Our forces rallied and drove the Dark Ones back. I frown, confused by his enthusiasm after our tragic defeat underground. What are you speaking of? I rasp through parched lips. An older orc, Maruz, joins in. When the mountain collapsed, it revealed the enemy's weakness. Their beasts and sorcerers had no magic. We cut them down by the hundreds. My mind races, recalling the strange impotence of the dark elves below. Could they have lost their powers? Kelmir nods eagerly. The traitor Caspane succeeded. He destroyed their stone of power. Maruz spits. Aye, a filthy bit of treachery. But for once their deceit favored us. He meets my gaze. This war is turning. I wish I could share their enthusiasm, but I can't stop thinking of the men we lost below. If only I had held out longer. I turn my face away, unable to convey just how broken I feel inside. The healers gather around me, their expressions grim. One motions to my maimed left arm. Let's have a look at that arm. I grunt and allow them to unwrap the blood-soaked bandages. One of them waves a hand over the mangled limb, murmuring an incantation left over from the ancient times. No magic accompanies it, only a searing burn as they pour antiseptic on the wound. I hiss through my teeth as my flesh tingles and burns as a healer bends close to examine it. After a few moments, the healer sighs and shakes his head. The damage is too severe. I'm afraid we cannot save the arm. His words strike me like a physical blow. I knew the truth already in my heart, but to hear it spoken aloud makes it real. My arm is gone. My days as a warrior are over. I grapple with a maelstrom of emotions in the aftermath. Bitter grief for my soldiers, my brothers in arms who died protecting me. Fierce anger at the loss of a part of myself. And deepest of all, the crushing blow to my identity. The master swordsman reduced to a crippled one-armed shell. You can't know that for certain. With time, isn't it possible his arm could heal? Savannah demands. They glance at each other, their expressions full of pity that only angers me more. I'm afraid it's no use, Swordmaster, the lead healer says gently. The arm was severed at the shoulder, the flesh and bone too damaged. No healing can restore what is gone. We must remove what is left so that the rest of his body might heal. I'm the best among us, the pinnacle of martial skill, and now that is gone forever. My skills, my pride, my purpose, all severed when that cursed elf's blade cut through flesh and bone. I grab his collar with my one remaining hand, pulling him close. You don't understand, I growl. I can't lose my arm. I'm nothing without it. My breaths come hard and fast as I stare into the healer's eyes, willing him to understand what this loss means for me. He pries my hand off his robes, not unkindly. We've done all we can, he says. I'm sorry, but if we don't remove the rest of your arm, you may lose your life as well to infection. Rage and grief war within me. I want to lash out, to make them comprehend my devastation, but I know it will make no difference. Swallowing a howl of anguish, I turn away, unable to bear their pity for a moment longer. They remove the limb. The pain is searing, even with the medicine they provide, but what comes next is worse. What comes next is nothing. My arm has slain hundreds of enemies. My arm is gone. A day later, I reach for a skin of water, only to realize that it's not there. Day after day, I'm reminded of what I've lost. Savannah visits me daily, but I don't speak. What could I possibly have to say? As soon as the healers allow, I retreat to my quarters, seeking solitude among the shadows. The celebrations of our victory grate on me like shards of glass in an open wound. I do not wish to be seen this way, a crippled shell of my former self. A soft knock at my door. Even that slight sound grates on me like thunder pounding inside my skull. Can she not just leave me be? As expected, her gentle voice follows. Daritus, I've brought you some stew. Please, let me come in. Leave me, I snarl, glaring at the offending door. Savannah tries the handle and slips quietly inside anyway. She approaches with a bowl extended towards me, steam rising in fragrant tendrils. Her eyes are full of infuriating pity. You need to eat, she urges. Your strength. With a roar, I dash the bowl from her hands. It clatters to the floor, stew splattering across the stones. I said leave me to rot, I shout, rage contorting my face. Can you not see I am worthless now? A one-armed failure. Savannah flinches but stands her ground. You are not worthless, she whispers. You know nothing, I sneer, turning my back on her lies. I am a crippled shadow, a disgrace. Now go. The stillness of my quarters closes in around me, oppressive in its emptiness. With no duties to attend to, no soldiers under my command, the quiet hours stretch endlessly before me. In these haunting moments alone, my grief swells like the tide, threatening to pull me under. Everything I was, am no longer. Everything I had, lost in a heartbeat. I stare down at the stump where once my sword arm lay, now a useless lump of scarred flesh, as much a stranger to me as my own reflection. Will I ever grow used to only having one hand to grip my blade? My thoughts inevitably turn to my fallen soldiers, their faces etched into my heart. I murmur their names like a prayer into the shadows. Braddock, Maruz, Relis, Timur. I see their last moments, sacrificing themselves for my sake. My failure. Tears well in my eyes, shameful evidence of my weakness. I blink them away angrily. I must be strong, honor their spirits as warriors deserve. But alone the grief overwhelms. The silence amplifies the roaring anguish in my soul. It pools around me, crushing me beneath its immense weight. This pain, this loss, they are mine to bear for all my days. I yearn to join my brethren in the eternal halls of our ancestors. At least in death we would be together again, and I would be made whole. But that release is denied me. For now, all I have is this stillness, this void, the wreckage of the life I once knew, the ceaseless echoes of my heartache in the deepening silence. Rosenfire, our family holds great weight and power in Orthani, and yet I hear whispers.
Do you think he can take him?
There is no way that this could happen.
No, more books. I can't remain locked in this ivory tower a moment longer.
She's perfect. The Baron's daughter must be found.
Julius, we shouldn't.
Why shouldn't we?
I am not a full dark elf. I do not possess their ethereal beauty. How will I find a mate?
The lowly Baron's son apparently has shown that he has the same gift of fire-wielding as I, if not stronger.
I am the family's dirty little secret. I am not the future of the family. Dukan is.
This world was created from a seed of evil.
I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, permanently.
Please, let me go.
If you want to join the poor humans who are bought and sold in the markets on a daily basis, you will find a way to get there.
I am free, and I am terrified.
You will never escape me.
I can try.
You will fail. Get seasons 1 and 2 of the Dark Elf series from worldsofprothika.com.
Prothika's magic is eternal. This series will show you why. Chapter 8. Savannah. As I approach Daritus's quarters, my footsteps feel heavier with each passing step. The tray in my hands holds a bowl of steaming stew and freshly baked bread, the delicious aroma wafting up to my nose. My palms are moist with nervous sweat, but I clench them tightly, determined not to let my anxiety show. With trembling fingers, I knock on his door. Daritus. It's me. I brought you something to eat. Slowly, the door creaks open and I step inside, finding him seated by the window. The sunlight spills into the room, casting his large form in a golden glow. The quarters are new, built for injured soldiers who cannot stay in a tent without getting ill. I wonder if we'll build more permanent housing, now that the war against the elves is turning in our favour. His eyes are fixed on something in the distance, a haunting emptiness in their depths that breaks my heart. The stump where his left arm used to be is uncovered, the scars still angry and raw. The sight makes my own arm throb in phantom pain. I force down the ache and approach slowly. I set the tray on a small table near him. Daritus doesn't react, doesn't even blink. He remains lost in whatever visions haunt him. It's going to be a warm day today, I say, attempting light conversation. No response. I try again. The healers said you're recovering well. An outright lie, but I'm grasping at straws. I ask about his breakfast, if he needs more blankets, anything I can think of to pierce this terrible silence. But my words disappear into the void separating us. Daritus stays locked in his private grief, deaf to my voice. My helplessness threatens to overwhelm me. I wish to offer him comfort, to share the weight pressing down on us both after all we've endured. But he is closed off, adrift on a river of pain I cannot reach. Still, I do not give up. With time and care we will find our way. I must keep trying, no matter how he pushes me away. I owe him that much. So I keep speaking softly, letting the words soothe us both like a healing balm. And I wait patiently for the day he is ready to listen. I move farther into the room, holding the tray out like a peace offering. You need to keep your strength up. Please, just a few bites. He turns, eyes flashing. Did you not hear me, woman? I said go. I flinch at his tone but do not retreat. After a hesitation, I set the tray down on a nearby table. I'll leave this here for when you're ready, I say softly. After long minutes of one-sided conversation, Daritus finally stirs. Enough, he growls. His voice is rough with disuse and thick with pain. He turns to face me, eyes flashing. I do not need your coddling, woman. Stop speaking nonsense and just leave me be. You need to eat to keep up your strength, I insist, gently. At this, Daritus lets out a bitter bark of laughter. Strength? I have no strength left. To demonstrate, he grabs the empty sleeve where his arm once was, then gives me a look like I'm some kind of vile scum for making him point it out. Please, I whisper, blinking back tears. Let me help you. I move to stand directly in front of Daritus, forcing him to look at me. His eyes are stormy with emotion, but I meet his gaze unflinchingly. I promise you, I will not leave your side, I tell him fervently. You saved my life. I owe you a debt that I fully intend to repay no matter how long it takes. I will help you recover. I swear it. Daritus's jaw clenches, conflicting feelings playing across his face. For a moment, I think I've gotten through to him, but then he turns away, presenting his back to me once more, shutting me out. My shoulders slump slightly in disappointment, but I do not give up hope. I gather the untouched food tray and walk quietly to the door. Pausing, I look back at Daritus's unmoving form. I'll return tomorrow, and every day after, for as long as you need me. I put as much conviction into the vow as I can muster. You cannot face this alone, Daritus. When you are ready, I will be here. Whether or not he takes my words to heart, I mean them absolutely. Over the next few days, caring for Daritus becomes my singular obsession. Each morning I bring him a tray, only to leave with it untouched. His responses vary from angry shouts to weary silence, but always the message is clear. He wants me to go and not return. Yet I return. Again and again I return. I clean his room when he will not. I plead with the healers to change his bandages when he refuses their aid. When infection sets in, I all but force him to accept their poultices, despite his string of expletives. I barely sleep, racked with worry over his declining health and spirits. The valiant friend I know still lingers beneath the surface, I'm certain of it. But with each passing day, he retreats further into his bitterness and solitude. It's unimaginable. He's always been so friendly and kind. How many times have I turned to him for solace whenever life with orcs nearly breaks me? I'm desperate to bring back my old friend. Once, in desperation, I invoke the memory of those we lost, asking if this is how he honours their sacrifice. Is this what they would want? What Braddock dash? He lashes out, shoving a pile of books to the floor with his one good arm, his face contorted in rage and anguish. They fall just short of my feet. His chest heaves, and he doesn't meet my eyes. I do not raise the names of the dead again. But his outburst shows me a spark still remains in him. I nurture that fragile hope, clinging to it when he ignores my presence entirely, lost in the depths of his personal hell. My own guilt threatens to pull me under at times, tugging at my heartstrings and drowning my thoughts in regrets. Every time I close my eyes, I see the brutal battle that left him wounded, wondering what I could have done differently. These memories haunt my dreams and pull me further under. But I force myself to be strong, for his sake if not my own. There are moments I fear the Daritus I knew is gone forever. It pains me deeply to see this proud warrior brought so low. Where once was light and warmth in our friendship, now there is only cold darkness. But I make a solemn vow, whispered to myself in the lonely nights when worry keeps me awake. I will stand by him, no matter how long the road. I will not give up on him.
Chapter 9. Daritus. From the window I watch as a formidable line of orc warriors march past. Their heavy footfalls shake the ground beneath them, and their weapons glint with blood and triumph. Behind them, dark elves are dragged in chains, their once proud forms now battered and broken. Yet, despite their defeat, a few still hold their heads high, defying their captors with unwavering pride. Stretchers of injured orcs follow. The elves are losing, but they are still fierce. Our men are still dying, and I do nothing. As I clench my fist in anger, I'm momentarily startled by the realization that I only have one hand to do so. My left arm is gone, taken from me in battle. The absence of its weight and warmth gnaws at my spirit like a festering wound, a constant reminder of all that I have lost. I think of my sword, my blade that I can no longer wield with my dominant hand. Will I ever battle again with the same skill and precision? Everything I worked so hard to perfect, gone in an instant beneath that cursed mountain. The prisoners disappear from view, leaving me alone with my dark thoughts once more. I should feel triumph, knowing our enemy has been brought low. Instead, I feel only the bitterness of seeing others march off to war while I remain trapped in this useless shell. A familiar knock interrupts my brooding. Savannah here again to try and raise my spirits. Part of me wants to silence her misplaced optimism, but a smaller, weaker part wants her here. I scowl, even as my stomach rumbles at the thought of a hot meal. "Go away, wench," I growl. She deserves better company than some miserable waste like me. Why won't she let me wither and die with some dignity? When I don't respond, she calls more insistently, "I'll not have you starve yourself to death in there." Anger rises in me at her audacity. "Well, I'll have you screw yourself," I shout back crudely. A brief silence follows before she responds. "Fine." I blink in surprise. That's all she has to say? "Fine what?" I ask gruffly. "I said fine," comes Savannah's calm reply. "I made a pact and I'll just sit here outside and die with you if that's what it takes." I snort derisively. "Great. Looking forward to the quiet," I retort, thinking that will drive her away. To my dismay, I hear the sounds of her sitting down and making herself comfortable against my door. She's calling my bluff, the damnably stubborn woman. I eye the door, weighing whether to fling it open and confront her, but hunger and exhaustion weigh me down. Do what you will, I mutter bitterly, turning away. I'll deal with her persistence later. For now, the knowledge that she remains close, keeping her silent vigil, is admittedly some small comfort in the darkness that engulfs me. Not that I would ever say so out loud. Savannah's threat to essentially camp outside my door weighs on me throughout the day, but I'll be damned if I give in to her demand for entry. So I ignore the grumbling hunger pangs and make no move toward the door. As night deepens and the stars blanket the sky, her voice cuts through the thick silence once more. Daritus, I meant every word I said. I will sit out here all night if you do not let me in. I scoff, trying to dismiss the sincerity in her tone. By the ancestors, woman, are you still lingering outside? I bellow back gruffly. Yes, and I refuse to leave, she retorts stubbornly, determined to be heard. I huff in exasperation, my frustration growing with each passing moment. Doesn't she understand how belittling it is to be treated as if I am weak and helpless? Fine, freeze or starve for all I care, I yell, hoping to drive her off. But in my heart I know she is not so easily deterred once set on a course, a trait we share, though I'm loath to admit it. Silence falls again, yet I sense she remains. Curse her tenacity. But beneath my frustration, her dedication touches something deep within my battered spirit. Something that whispers perhaps I do not have to bear this alone. Still, I push that traitorous thought away for now, and try to ignore her presence outside my sanctum. I cling to my anger like a shield against the stirrings of hope she evokes. Sooner or later she must relent, mustn't she? Morning sunlight filters into my quarters. At first I don't realize it's a new day, the hours blurring together in my self-imposed solitude. Savannah? I call out tentatively, wondering if she finally gave up her vigil. Only silence answers. I feel a small surge of victory that her resolve failed before mine. But soon comes another knock, heavier than hers. I growl impatiently, I told you, woman, before trailing off as the door swings open. Maruzi stands there, a hulking orc captain and one of my few friends. His expression is grim as he informs me. Savannah collapsed. She's in the infirmary. My gut twists anxiously, though I try not to show it. Her threat was clearly empty, I reply dismissively. Maruzi fixes me with a stern look. It was no threat but a solemn vow. She kept her word at great cost. He gestures, insisting I come see the proof. Reluctantly, I let him lead me to the infirmary, and there lies Savannah, curled small atop a cot, face pale and drawn even in unconsciousness. Maruzi's large hand grips my shoulder. For days she has cooked for you, cleaned for you. She's hardly taken time to care for herself. Every meal you refused, she refused until her body gave out. And do you know what she said as they carried her here? She begged me to check in on you. Will you waste the gift she offers? I stand silent and conflicted, confronted by the evidence of her sacrifice. This defiant, stubborn woman, laying herself low for my sake, humbling me without intending to. Maruzi departs, leaving me alone with her still form. In it, I see the reflection of my own struggle laid bare. I cannot keep avoiding this reckoning. The time has come to choose my path forward. His words linger, cutting through the bitter isolation I've wrapped myself in these past days. I cannot keep pretending that her loss and mine are separate burdens. We both witnessed the horrific slaughter underground. We both mourn those who fell. My resistance to accepting help is only deepening our wounds. I remain frozen in indecision. Savannah lies motionless on the cot, seeming impossibly small and fragile. I'm left alone to grapple with the sight. Guilt wells up within me, wavering my stubborn resistance to her aid. She has sacrificed much to stand by my side, never abandoning hope even when I cruelly pushed her away. I stare down at her pale face, remembering the defiant fire that fills her when awake. Even brought low, she never falters. I should not either. I owe it to her, and to the memory of those we lost, to find the strength to carry on. The time has come to open myself to healing, to stop walling out her light. I take a seat on the simple wooden stool beside Savannah's cot. Her chest rises and falls softly with the rhythm of her breathing. It's a soothing, hypnotic sound. Her skin is cold from the infirmary air. I rub my thumb over her knuckles, willing some warmth into them. When she stirs, I will still be here. We will find a way through the darkness together. She will know she does not suffer alone.
Chapter 10. Savannah. Soft murmurs and muffled voices gradually penetrate the thick fog of unconsciousness, coaxing me back to the world. With a great effort, I pry open my heavy eyelids, squinting against the bright daylight that floods my vision. As my senses slowly come back, I am met with the sight of Daritus's tall, imposing form perched at the edge of my bed. His usually stern features are softened by an uncharacteristic expression of deep concern, and as our eyes meet, I catch a glimmer of relief shining through his stoic demeanour, a clear indication that he's been worried about me. A rush of emotions overwhelms me at this simple gesture, that he's here by my side, showing that he still cares despite everything we've been through. After days of icy rejection, a part of me can hardly believe it, but the warmth radiating from his presence speaks louder than any words could convey. "You're here," I whisper hoarsely. My own relief brings a sheen of tears to my eyes. I was afraid my collapse would only drive him further away. He nods, his expression difficult to read, but he grasps my hand firmly in his. "I was a fool to make you endure such sacrifice, but no more." His voice rumbles with quiet conviction. He looks genuinely torn, and with those simple words, a knot within me loosens. We have been through so much pain, but now there is a chance to face it together, to heal each other. Tears of relief well up, blurring my vision. I reach out weakly for his hand. After days of distance, the solid contact bridges the chasm that had opened between us. "I missed you," I confess in a mere whisper, my voice hoarse with emotion. "I missed our friendship, your warmth." It's true. Even though he was horrible to me, I know it was his pain speaking through him. As tears spill over my cheeks, his rigid posture softens. His shoulders relax, and he gently squeezes my hand. The walls he had built around himself now show cracks, giving way to his own emotions. "Forgive me," he murmurs. Shame and regret glisten in his eyes. "I was lost, but you never gave up on me." I shake my head weakly. There is nothing to forgive. You were in pain. With my free hand, I reach up to touch his cheek. "But you don't have to carry it alone anymore. I was so afraid I'd lost you," I confess, my voice barely above a whisper. "When you pushed me away, it felt like you were slipping away forever." "I know. I was cruel when you only offered comfort. I just wanted to help shoulder your burden, but you seemed determined to carry it alone." I bite my lip, hesitating, then add, "I don't know if I can get better, truly better, without you by my side." At this admission, Daritus meets my eyes again. "Nor I without you," he admits. "I was a fool to try." His reassurance loosens the cold knot of fear within me. "No more pushing each other away?" I ask tentatively. "No more," he vows. "From now on we heal as one. It is only fair." The guilt has gnawed at me every moment since that battle, I confess, tears welling up again. I can't stop feeling responsible for what happened to you. He tilts my chin up gently. "You saved my life," he rumbles. I would have been cut down by that elf before the mountain had a chance to fall. A shuddering breath escapes my lips as I struggle to contain the emotions swirling within me. You don't know that. And if I hadn't been there, or if I'd just run faster, you wouldn't have been stuck in those treacherous tunnels. If I would have fought harder against the elves in the caves, you might have kept your arm. Others might have kept their lives. I wasn't enough. A sob breaks free from my trembling frame. He enfolds me in a strong embrace, a rare display of tenderness from this normally stoic warrior. His hand caresses my hair gently, offering comfort and reassurance. "Hush now," he whispers soothingly. "You acted from compassion, as you always do." He tilts his head to press a gentle kiss against my temple. "You did nothing wrong. I've never even thought to blame anyone but myself." As his voice rumbles out, I can hear the raw emotion he's trying to hold back. His arm folds across my back, and we share in each other's pain, knowing it fully and finding comfort in the connection between us. I cling to him as my body is racked with sobs, but they feel cleansing, releasing all the pent-up hurt and bitterness inside of me. Daritus doesn't say anything more, but simply sits there, offering solace and understanding. "After you pushed me away, I couldn't eat or sleep," I admit. My own guilt was eating me alive. Daritus's expression fills with regret. "I should not have abandoned you so." For a time I believed I had died back in those tunnels too. I confess in a small voice. That I was doomed to just exist in that hopeless hell forever. No, never. Daritus squeezes my hand fiercely. I blink back fresh tears at his adamant tone. "I don't know what I would have done if you never came back to me. I swear you will never be rid of me again." The intensity of his vow sends a shiver through me. In his eyes I see my own need reflected. I lean my head against his broad chest, finding solace in its steady rhythm. His calloused hand strokes my hair in a comforting gesture, calming the storm of emotions raging within me. I release all the pent-up anguish that I had kept buried for so long, as if it were a physical weight being lifted off my chest. I cling to him like a lifeline, my tears soaking into the fabric of his tunic, but they feel cleansing.
Chapter 11. Daritus. Days later, the entire Orc Camp is pulsing with frenetic energy as preparations kick into high gear for the upcoming victory celebration. Banners of deep red and gold are being strung up, tables are overflowing with hearty feasts, and raucous laughter echoes through the air as orcs get ready for a night of wild revelry to honor their recent triumph over the Dark Elves. Amidst the chaotic scene, Savannah and I share a meaningful glance, a small gesture of solidarity amongst the chaos. Neither of us feel much like joining in on the festivities. The memories are still too fresh of the suffocating darkness in the tunnels, the haunting screams of our fallen comrades, the fierce battle for survival. As a group of burly warriors belt out an off-key drinking song nearby, I can't help but cringe at their boisterousness. Savannah offers me a sympathetic smile, knowing all too well how out of place this rowdy joy feels to my somber mood. "Ho there, Daritus! Not sneaking off before the celebration's begun, are you?" He presses stone cups of mead into both of our hands, beaming. "Just getting some air, friend," I reply, forcing joviality into my tone. Savannah gives Relish a polite smile, but I can see the tension in her eyes. She grips her cup tightly, staring at the amber liquid rather than drinking it. Relish, his voice booming with excitement, lifts his drink high in the air. A deep red liquid sloshes around in the cup, threatening to spill over. He turns to us, grinning broadly and expectantly. "To victory!" he shouts, raising his glass towards us in a toast. "Come now, my dear heroes of the battlefield. This revelry is in your honor." I take a hesitant sip of my drink, trying not to grimace at the overwhelming sweetness that fills my mouth. The alcohol burns as it goes down, leaving a sour taste in my stomach. I glance over at Savannah, whose cup remains untouched. "We'll join you all shortly," I manage to say, forcing a smile onto my face. "But first, there's something I need to take care of." As I turn away from the celebration and begin walking towards my destination, I can't help but feel like this victory is bittersweet. The cheers and laughter of my comrades ring in my ears, but deep down, I know that there are sacrifices made during war that cannot be celebrated or forgotten so easily. Fine, just don't take too long." Relis moves off, pulled back into the throng. "Come, let's get away for a time," I murmur, my hand finding hers and giving it a gentle, reassuring squeeze. She nods gratefully. We make our quiet excuses and slip away unnoticed amidst the commotion. The clamor fades behind us as we walk in unspoken agreement towards the secreted meadow beyond the western watchtower. Out here, beyond the chaotic energy of the camp, we can find a moment of peace, a temporary reprieve from the looming specter of celebration that feels more like obligation than joy. For now, we simply need solitude and the comfort of each other's presence. We emerge from the shaded forest into a sunlit meadow, a tranquil expanse untouched by the turmoil we've endured. The raucous laughter and song from the camp filters faintly on the breeze, but even those echoes begin to fade. I feel her relax slightly as the commotion becomes muted by distance. "It's so beautiful here, is it not?" she murmurs, turning her face up to the dappled sunlight through the trees. "Not as beautiful as the company," I reply without thinking. To my surprise, she gifts me with a radiant smile that makes my breath catch. Here there is only the rustle of the tall grass swaying gently in the breeze. Our feet tread softly across the carpet of wildflowers dotting the meadow, their cheery yellows and violets swaying in the light breeze. The sun's warmth cascades over us, soothing and nurturing. I tilt my face towards it, feeling the tightness in my chest finally begin to uncoil. Beside me, Savannah closes her eyes for a moment, simply inhaling the sweet scents wafting on the wind. In this idyllic space, we allow ourselves to pretend, just briefly, that all is right with the world, that the horrific battles, the echoing screams of the dying, the empty spaces left by the lost, never came to pass, that life has always been this gentle breeze, this warmth, this tranquility. For a time, Savannah and I simply soak in the meadow, leaving our grim memories behind. But soon I sense her growing restless. This warrior woman is not one for idle peace. "A friendly competition to take advantage of this fine hunting ground?" I propose. Savannah's eyes light up eagerly at the prospect, and before I know it, she's off, seemingly finally having an outlet for all her pent-up energy. Together we take to the grassy fields with vigor, the pretend peace giving way to excitement as our mock hunt begins. Soon laughter rings out as we try to outdo each other flushing prey. I find myself admiring Savannah's skill as she moves with innate grace and silence. Her footsteps scarcely disturb a blade of grass before she pounces, emerging from the stalks with a rabbit dangling from one hand. In turn, she complements my long spear throw that fells a pheasant in mid-flight. My other arm isn't quite as useless as I thought. Soon we are both breathless and laughing, reveling in this display of friendly rivalry. "We're tied," Savannah declares. "Only because you refused to beat me," I admit. Only a few days ago I would find this unbearable. But now, standing with Savannah in this meadow, I find it hard to begrudge her skill. "Your ferocity caught me off guard," I chuckle. Never had I seen someone so diminutive bring down an orc twice her size. Savannah's eyes shine as she listens to me recount my first impression of her. My voice grows warm with nostalgia. "I knew then you were a woman worthy of respect," I continue, "although it took a while to win your trust." "I couldn't understand why you'd risk your life for me," Savannah says softly, her shoulder pressed companionably against mine. I nod solemnly, my levity dimming. The truth was that I'd had no choice. Something. As our energy is renewed, Savannah teaches me simple games from her childhood, contests of speed and agility that have me roaring with laughter as she outmaneuvers me again and again. The sound of her unrestrained joy is infectious. I find myself enraptured by her laughter, so pure and melodic, cutting through the darkness that lingers in both our hearts. Caught up in the play, our wrestling turns unexpectedly intimate. I pin her without thinking, our bodies pressed close. Her eyes lock onto mine, our racing hearts suddenly loud in the frozen moment. Awkwardness rushes in at our loss of restraint. I retreat several paces, the ghost of our closeness still tingling. Savannah busies herself smoothing her tunic, a pretty blush upon her cheeks. As the silence between us stretches on, my stomach growls loudly, reminding me of my hunger. I look over at her and see that she is also feeling the effects of our long day together. "I'm starving," she says, breaking the stillness. The thought of food makes my mouth water, and I nod eagerly. We set to work, gathering dry brush, and soon a fire is crackling merrily in front of us. The scent of wood smoke fills the air, mixing with the earthy smell of the forest. Together, we clean and prepare our combined catches, a plump pheasant and a plump rabbit, taking turns sharing techniques and tips. Finally, we have our meal ready and we sit down together, sharing the food that was roasted on simple sticks. The meat is perfectly cooked, tender and juicy, and the simple flavors are elevated by our shared efforts. We laugh and talk as we eat, the warmth of the fire and the satisfaction of a good meal filling us with contentment. In this moment, surrounded by nature and each other's company, everything feels right in the world. In the firelight, Savannah's features are made luminous, unguarded in a way I've never seen. I cherish this glimpse beneath her usual armor, a gift I know few are permitted. We linger by the fire until the flames sink to glowing embers, and dusk deepens into night around us. A peaceful melancholy settles in at the thought of this idyllic day ending. Reluctantly, we gather the remnants of our meal and douse the fire, our time of solitude drawing to a close. The first twinkling stars spark into view overhead as we make our way across the meadow.
Chapter 12. Savannah. Eating together in the meadow becomes a habit. Sherbet notices me rushing out of the quartermaster tent past the orphanage and rolls her eyes. "Must be a very exciting dinner at the canteen," she teases. I laugh, ignoring her as I rush to meet Daritus before the sun sets. "Tell me more about your boyhood amongst the clans," I murmur one night as we sit together beneath the stars. Daritus smiles, his eyes glinting with fond recollection. "Let's see. I remember my first hunt. I was but a reckless youth, determined to take down a boar single-handed." He laughs, a warm rumbling sound. "Nearly got myself gored in my foolishness. My father had to intervene and save me from becoming a beast's supper." I laugh along, enraptured by this glimpse of a more carefree Daritus. "I can just picture you charging in heedlessly." "Youth made me bold to the point of folly," he admits with a rueful grin. "But those days carried a joy and lightness before the burdens of war settled on my shoulders." His smile fades and he glances upward at the stars. I move closer, letting my presence remind him those times are not wholly lost. We have found our own simple joys again amidst the shadows. "Tell me more," I murmur, resting my head on his shoulder. "What far-off places do you dream of seeing one day?" It's a particularly quiet night, and it feels like we're the last two awake in the entire world. He hums thoughtfully before responding. "I often think of the mountains that border the northern lands. I imagine they are capped in snow, even in the height of summer." He clears his throat, then begins painting a verbal tableau in his deep, rumbling voice. "Imagine a range of jagged peaks, jutting sharply against the sky. Some rear up like stone spear tips, so high their summits are wreathed in mist. The mountain slopes are forested in dark pine, the trees packed so dense sunlight barely penetrates. A crisp scent of sap and snow hangs in the air." He closes his eyes, clearly envisioning the scene. "When the wind blows, It sighs through the needled boughs like a low, haunting song. It's quiet, save for the occasional sharp cry of an eagle. Higher up, the pines give way to barren rock. Glaciers grind slowly through mountain valleys, carving out massive ice-blue crevasses. The cold is biting, numbing exposed skin in an instant. Nobody in the world to bother you up there. Not a care in the world. Not a single fight or conflict, other than that of the Great Mother. It sounds lovely, I muse. As my affection for him grows, so too does the guilt simmering within. Thoughts of his maimed arm and our shared trauma surface unbidden, unleashing a wave of unworthiness that crashes over me. My mind becomes a battlefield, torn between the yearnings of my heart and the condemnation of my own conscience. How can I indulge in tender feelings when I bear responsibility for his suffering? Oblivious to my inner turmoil, he seems to find comfort and solace in my presence. His own affection for me appears to be deepening, hints shining through in lingering gazes and casual touches. But while Daritus blossoms in the safety of this new closeness, I wage a silent war within. Each night, I tell myself I must be content with friendship, that my heart oversteps its bounds. With each shy smile or confession from Daritus, my promises to remain detached grow weaker. During the day, I maintain a cheerful facade, keeping my inner turmoil concealed. We slip into new routines of shared meals and supporting each other through setbacks and dark moments. When we eventually part to our separate quarters, the mask falls away. Alone on my bed, I clutch the sheets, choking back sobs. My pillow grows damp with silent tears of frustration and longing. Sleep eludes me as I agonize over dreams that can never be. I yearn to abandon caution, to give myself over fully. But guilt paralyzes me, the ghost of his maimed arm hovering in accusation. This secret torment of doubt and desire haunts me, a gnawing anguish I dare not voice aloud. I cannot let Daritus glimpse how broken and conflicted I remain inside. During our time together, I find excuses for casual touches and allow my gazes to linger, communicating without words. Each point of contact, however fleeting, ignites my yearning. Daritus returns my subtle affections in kind, his looks burning with a growing hunger. Yet for all we convey without saying, the actual confession remains trapped behind my lips. We're caught in limbo, transformed and bound to one another, yet scared to close the breath of distance. And so we pretend nothing simmers beneath, even as it threatens to boil over. But I can't keep ignoring it. I feel it building with each passing day, and it's becoming unbearable. I twist in my blankets, sleep nowhere to be found. Instead, my body is heating up with each thought of Daritus. I can feel wetness pooling between my legs, the desire that has been building reaching a breaking point within me. Hesitantly, I snake my hand down the front of my body. My fingers find their way under the thin fabric of my nightgown, moving slowly but surely towards my core. I'm trembling with anticipation and fear. What if someone hears me? We've had to censor this section because it's a bit too spicy for YouTube. Want to hear the full, unfiltered story? Head over to worldsofprothika.com and use code YouTube30 to save on the complete pulse-pounding experience. Let's get back to the story.
Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprothika.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Prothika's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 13. Daritus. I sit alone in my quarters, the silence within a stark contrast to the muffled sounds of celebration filtering through the walls. Laughter, music, joy. They all wash over me, reminders of the life I once knew but can no longer grasp. My heart feels heavy with melancholy as I reflect on the many feasts and festivals I would have been at the center of in better days. But now I am marked, an outcast in my own tribe, useless and faltering. These past few days, Savannah has been my only light. I keep up the cheerful facade for her, but when I return home, the cheer fades. I stare bitterly at the empty space where once my sword arm lay. Now a useless stump, it pains and shames me constantly, an unrelenting symbol of how far I have fallen. I cannot even properly chop firewood or grip a tankard one-handed. The cheers and singing of my clan celebrating our victory without me only underscores my worthlessness. I was meant to lead them, inspire them, share in their joy. Now when they look at me, the laughter falls from their faces. They see me as broken, a failure, and they're right. Perhaps it would be better if I simply vanished into the wilderness rather than endure their whispered pity. I yearn to reclaim my place among them, but fear they will only ever see me as diminished. Restless, I move to the window and gaze out at the gatherings around the great bonfires. The firelight illuminates the faces of my comrades, their expressions open and joyful, but their unrestrained merriment feels like a heavy weight upon my burdened soul. I turn away, unable to share in such celebrations when darkness continues to shroud my heart. Savannah has made things more bearable. When I'm with her, I can almost forget I'm not whole. But there are moments when she stares at me a breath too long, moments where I stare back. She deserves so much more. Seeking distraction, I pull down the most worn of my tomes. Tales of ancient Orcish heroes, accounts of legendary valor and honor from eras past. I flip through pages made soft with use, taking meager solace in their familiar words. For a time, I managed to lose myself in the stories of those who overcame impossible odds and emerged triumphant. My imagination conjures their heroic feats, though bitterness tinges even these fanciful visions. Eventually, I set the book aside with a frustrated sigh. Those heroes bore no such stains or failings as I do. Their shining examples only underscore my deficiencies, reminding me of how far I have fallen from the warrior I once aspired to be. A knock at the door stirs me from my brooding. Savannah, likely. Her company is bittersweet agony, tempting me to hope, reminding me I am utterly unworthy of such devotion, or the tenderness she evokes within me. A soft knock precedes Savannah's entrance, despite my closed-off mood. I almost tell her to go away, but I bite back my words. "Get up and open the door, you grumpy bum," she calls out teasingly. I huff, but rise to unlatch the door for her. She stands haloed in firelight, a bottle swinging from one hand. "No celebrating for you either?" I ask gruffly. "I decided solitude and spirit sounded far better," she says with a smile. Her companionship is a balm, though I will not admit so aloud. Well, mostly solitude. Together we partake of the drink she brought, passing the bottle between us. The warmth of the alcohol loosens the tension I carry and makes our silence comfortable rather than heavy. If she senses the shadows lingering in my heart, she does not press or pry. She simply offers the gift of her presence. "I fear my best days are behind me," I confess softly, the admission shaming me to voice aloud. I cannot meet Savannah's eyes, afraid of finding judgment or worse, pity, in them. But instead I feel the warmth of her hand covering mine, squeezing gently in unspoken support. The simple contact undoes some of the anxious knots within me. "You underestimate yourself," Savannah says after a thoughtful silence. "There are still many great deeds ahead for you." I scoff bitterly. Deeds of glory call for 2 good arms, not a crippled stump. Savannah's gaze bores into mine, unwilling to let me wallow in self-pity. Deeds worthy of song come in many forms, Your strength was never only in your sword arm. I shake my head dismissively, but she persists. You have so much left to give, if only you can see it. Help your people, guide the young ones. Become the heart that keeps us together. Her words spark a faint glimmer of something beyond bleakness. Could I find purpose still in ways beyond combat? It seems impossible. Battle is all I've known. The path you walked before is gone, Savannah finishes gently. But you might build new ones if you allow yourself to try. Savannah listens quietly as I unburden myself, her green eyes filled with empathy rather than judgment. She knows this loss intimately too, the struggle to rediscover purpose after trauma. Her hand finds mine, grounding me as I reveal insecurities no warrior should ever voice aloud. But with Savannah, my vulnerabilities do not feel like weaknesses. When I stumble later, nearly tripping over my own boots, she startles then laughs brightly as the errant goblet crashes loudly to the floor. Spilling drink everywhere, the sheer absurdity of the moment pulls me from my melancholy, and I find myself joining in her contagious mirth. The darkness cannot cling to me with her around. As our laughter fades, Savannah squeezes my hand once more. The past will haunt, she murmurs, but we must not let it claim the future. I cling to her words, to the possibility they offer. I remember the young warriors I've guided over the years. Maybe there is some value I might find outside of fighting. Gradually, our conversation trails off into comfortable silence. Without thinking, I slip my arm around Savannah's shoulders, drawing her close. She leans into me readily, her head coming to rest against my chest. I marvel at how perfectly she fits against me, the clean scent of her hair enveloping my senses. Our gazes lock, and in her eyes I glimpse my own longing reflected back at me. In this unguarded moment, I can no longer deny the growing desire kindling within me. I wonder if her lips would feel as soft as they look, if they would taste even sweeter than the finest wine. My heartbeat quickens as she tilts her face up toward mine. Unable to resist, I close the distance between us and capture her lips in a fervent kiss. She responds eagerly as we give in to this dance we have long skirted around. When our lips first meet, it is like a spark catching flame. Tentative at first, we both hesitate, savoring the moment of anticipation. Then everything turns urgent and our kiss deepens hungrily. My hand rises of its own accord to cradle Savannah's cheek, her skin velvet soft beneath my calloused palm. Her fingers twist in the fabric of my tunic, pulling me desperately closer. I'm starving for her. The kiss sends a jolt through my body, more potent than the spirits we drank. I feel her everywhere, surrounding and consuming me. Her lips move ardently against mine, an intoxicating mix of yielding softness and urgency. I commit each sensation to memory, the tingling heat of her breath, the sweetness of her mouth, the racing of my heart keeping tempo with hers. In this moment, nothing exists but her, this kiss, this pure feeling flowing between us. When we finally break apart, gasping raggedly, the absence of her leaves me hollow, bereft. Our eyes meet, wide with shared disbelief and longing. My blood sings with awakened desire. My skin aches for her touch. We should. My voice trails off, rough. I mean to tell her that we should stop, but that's impossible. I need her like I need to breathe. Savannah nods like she agrees, but she's already crawling into my lap, already pressing her lips against mine. All else fades away as I savor the feel of her mouth. She is ambrosia and fire, a drug to my senses. This kiss says everything our voices could not. Reluctantly, we break apart, eyes feverish, clinging to one another. I should feel ashamed by this impropriety, but cannot bring myself to regret tasting something so divine. Let propriety burn. I have found sustenance for my starving spirit at last. My fingers tangle in her hair and I kiss her again.
Chapter 14. Savannah. His lips press against mine, catching me off guard and sending a jolt of electricity through my body. The warmth of his touch sears my skin, while the roughness of his stubble ignites a fire within me. My heart races in my chest, each beat echoing like thunder as I struggle to catch my breath. His sudden boldness leaves me stunned, unable to form words or thoughts. I can feel the heat radiating from him, drawing me closer with every second that passes. It takes every ounce of self-control not to give in and melt into his embrace, consumed by the intensity of our connection. "We shouldn't be doing this," he says, but his body tells a completely different story. I can see the heat behind his eyes, the raw desire. "I don't care," I purr, giving in to my own desires. His hand, warm and strong, cradles my cheek with tenderness as he pulls me closer to him. In that moment, the initial shock of his touch dissipates, replaced by a fierce longing I didn't know existed within me. I close my eyes, giving in to the kiss without hesitation. The world around us fades away, leaving only the delicious sensation of his lips on mine, igniting a fire deep within my core. At first, our lips barely graze each other's, tentative and unsure like two strangers on the cusp of something new. But soon the passion between us ignites, and our mouths fuse together with more fervour. Our restraint dissolves as we both give in to our desires, our bodies yearning. With a tinge of reluctance, we part from our passionate kiss, but our eyes remain locked. His gentle fingers trace the curve of my cheek, and a rush of warmth spreads through my body. Each touch is like an electric shock, sparking emotions that cannot be put into words. It feels as though time has stopped. My fingers clutch at the soft cotton of his tunic, grasping for stability as my heart races in my chest. I press myself closer to him, wanting to merge our bodies into one. The world fades away, leaving only the two of us and the electric energy between us. My lips tingle with the memory of his. I stare into his eyes, feeling lost and found all at once. My thoughts are a jumbled mess, my emotions overflowing with love and longing. "I'm sorry," he says, pulling away, looking ashamed for losing control. But before he can fully retreat, I reach for his hand, desperate to hold on to him. A wave of regret and shame washes over him, causing him to pull away from me. He looks down, trying to hide his emotions. But I can't let go just yet. My hand reaches out, grasping for his, desperate to keep him close, desperate to feel the warmth of his touch and reassure myself that he's still here with me. "Wait," I whisper, my voice trembling with emotion. "I need this. We both do." My lips find his again, pleadingly, the taste of him still lingering on my tongue. It's all I can think about now that I've finally had a taste of what it feels like to be wanted by him. The heat of our bodies intertwined, the electricity coursing between us, the urgency in our movements. It's all consuming and intoxicating. It's what I want. All I can think about now that I've finally had a taste. I tighten my grip on his hand. My heart races as I desperately try to convey the urgency of this moment. "Please," I whisper, pressing my lips against his again. I can feel his hesitation, but I need this. We both do. These two are just getting started. Find all the glorious details over at worldsofprothika.com and use code YouTube30 for a great deal on the unabridged content, as well as some bonus extras. Back to it.
Chapter 15. Daritus. I am lost in the intoxicating sensation of her. I've never felt this way about a woman before. The scent of her skin, a blend of wildflowers and musk, fills my senses and becomes my entire world. I crave the warmth of her body against mine. Her soft curves fit perfectly into my embrace, in a pleasing way I could have never thought possible. With a nervous hand, my only hand, I slide her cloak from her shoulders. My fingers trace over the scars marring the skin on her arms, each one a symbol of her bravery and sacrifice. I reach for the small knife strapped to her waist, and her breath catches. "You won't be needing this," I tease. I should hope not. She grins, but takes it from me and places it near the bed within her reach. But let's keep it close just in case. It seems unnatural to be unarmed after all this time. She is such a beautiful contradiction. An accomplished spy uncomfortable being unarmed, and a stunning woman whose cheeky smile makes my heart pound out of beat. I try to decide which half I like more, but abandon that line of thought when she lifts her hips, rubbing her lower body along my quickly hardening shaft. Her eyes have darkened to a velvety emerald, and she is gazing at me with the look of a woman in need of her man. A feeling of possession washes through me so quickly and furiously that I have to contemplate it for a moment to recognize the emotion. I want to be the only one she looks at that way. With a growl, I capture her lips in a searing kiss, my tongue demanding entrance into her mouth as my hand travels lower, teasing along the dip of her waist. This chapter's heat level is off the charts. Too much for YouTube, in fact. But you can catch every sizzling detail at worldsofprotheka.com. Don't forget to use code YouTube30 for a hot discount. Now back to where we left off.
There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me. Chapter 16. Savannah. My eyelids flutter open, gradually awakening to the soft glow of dawn seeping through the curtains. For a brief moment, I relish in the lingering memories of our night together, of Daritus's arms wrapped around me and his breath tickling my neck. But as consciousness seeps in fully, so does the realization that I am alone. I sit up quickly, scanning the room for any sign of him. His side of the bed is cold and empty, a stark contrast to the warmth and passion we shared just hours ago. The silence in his quarters is deafening, weighing heavily on my chest. Yet my skin still tingles with the imprint of his touch on every inch of my body. As I take in my surroundings, it's as if I can almost feel his presence lingering in the air, taunting me with its absence. I wrap a cloak around myself against the morning chill and creeping doubts. Where has he gone so early? Does he regret what passed between us under night's cover? Uncertainty gnaws at me as I drift to the window overlooking the camp. The world seems hushed, not yet stirred to life in this grey hour, and Daritus is nowhere to be seen. As I wait anxiously for his return, the solitude only amplifies my worries. In the clear light of day, did he think we've made a mistake? Have I lost his friendship and more in one reckless night? No, I tell myself, last night was real. He must only need time to clear his head and will return to me soon. I cling desperately to that thought as the silence closes around me like a shroud. Last night was real. Our feelings are real. I repeat the words to myself, trying to convince myself they're true. But as the day wears on, my hope dwindles. I catch quick glimpses of Daritus throughout the camp, a flash of his lean, ropey shoulders as he turns a corner, the rustle of his cloak as he disappears into the kitchens or camp centre. Each time, my heart sinks further into my chest. The silence between us is suffocating, like a heavy blanket slowly smothering me. I fear deep down that our friendship is finished. Every time I get close to him, he just stares. The tension is palpable, leaving me dizzy with uncertainty and desire. But there's always a reason for him to leave. Does he avoid me intentionally? Has our shared passion become a source of regret for him? In the days that follow, my heart strains under the weight of his rejection. Each time our paths cross, his eyes seem to purposely avoid mine as he finds excuses to depart quickly. I feel like a trapped bird, desperate for his attention and affection, but unable to reach it. The air between us is thick with unspoken longing and confusion, a dance of emotions that leaves me feeling simultaneously elated and heartbroken. The constant avoidance sits like a cold stone in my chest. I would trade everything about our night together if we can still be friends. I must confront him. In the bustling training yard, amidst the clang of metal against metal and the shouts of soldiers, I spot Daritus. He stands out in his simple tunic, swinging a wooden practice blade with only one hand. His movements are jerky and uncoordinated, lacking the usual fluid grace and power that I have come to expect from him. As I make my way towards him, he looks up warily, his expression tense and guarded. The scar running down his face seems more pronounced in the harsh sunlight, a constant reminder of the battles he has faced. He looks up warily as I approach. "We need to talk," I say without preamble. His expression shudders. He turns aside, pretending to adjust his grip. There is nothing to discuss. Two broken people made a foolish mistake. That is both the beginning and end of the story. His words pierce me sharply. "It was not a mistake," I counter, firmness masking the quaver in my voice. I step forward, forcing him to face me. "I will not let you pretend it never happened. I know you felt what I did." Daritus looks away, jaw clenched. "It's useless. You deserve more than a broken warrior," he says gruffly. "I cannot give you the life you should have." I step closer, lowering my voice. "Let me decide what I deserve. Don't push me away because you feel unworthy." He scowls, swinging his blade fiercely. "This fumbling with one arm, I'm useless now." The wooden sword impacts a training post with a crack. My heart aches at the depths of his turmoil. "You're more than your injury. I know the man inside is still strong." Daritus shakes his head bitterly. "The man you knew is gone. I'm not who I was." His next swing goes wild, the blade clattering to the dirt as he curses in frustration. I gently take his hand before he can turn from me again. The man before me now is who I care for. I search his conflicted gaze. "Please don't shut me out." I grasp Daritus's hand tightly, willing him to understand. "My love is real," I counter, my voice threaded with emotion. "Do not cast it aside because you feel undeserving." I bite my lip, then push on in a tremulous whisper. "The only shadow over it is my own guilt, that I am responsible for your injury, your pain." Hot tears spill down my cheeks. The stark truth laid bare shakes us both. Daritus stares at me, stunned, seeing the depth of the anguish I still harbour. "I want only to bring you joy, yet I'm the source of your suffering." A sob shakes free. "Can you forgive me that sin? Can we overcome it?" Daritus grips my shoulders firmly, ducking his head to force me to meet his intense gaze. "You acted selflessly as you always have. I made the choice to protect you, as did my soldiers." He reaches up to brush the tears from my skin. "We alone decide our fates. I don't blame you for the circumstance, and neither should you." I shake my head, not yet ready to relinquish my guilt. "But you cannot deny that I played some part." Silence falls between us, heavy with the raw honesty just shared. I search Daritus's face, but find only weariness and pain rather than rejection. Perhaps he feels as emotionally drained as I. When he finally stirs, reluctance weighs down his posture. "Let us be honest with ourselves," he murmurs. "We're broken beyond repair, and being together will only make it worse." My heart sinks, but I nod. As much as it pains me, forcing the issue will gain nothing. I move to leave, pausing to glance back once more. He stands immutable in the training yard, the set of his shoulders bowing under invisible weight. The space between us now feels endless. I turn away before he sees fresh tears gather in my eyes. This is not a farewell, I tell myself. Our confessions changed nothing, only revealed the vast expanse still separating us. Perhaps we cannot overcome the past after all. Perhaps our wounds cannot heal in tandem.
Chapter 17. Daritus. I wake with a pounding head on the day the council is set to decide the fate of our dark elf prisoners. My mouth tastes of stale ale as I fumble for the half-empty bottle left from last night's stupor. I force down a burning swig, welcoming the numbness it brings. Anything to drown out the all-consuming hatred and despair. In rare, sober moments, as the first rays of sunlight pierce the gloom, I risk a glance at my reflection in the polished metal mirror. The haggard, defeated face staring back makes me snarl in disgust. Is this truly what I have become? With a growl of anguish, I slam my fist into the mirror, fracturing the image into jagged shards. Pain flares bright and hot, grounding me. Proof I can still feel something beyond despair. Blood drips to the dirt below, glinting wetly in the dawn light. Today is supposed to be different. Today, finally, I may see justice served. Vengeance for my mutilation, my fallen comrades. I cling desperately to that dangerous hope. Donning my armor, I ignore the gaps where mail and plate once fitted seamlessly. One arm hangs empty, the useless stump a reminder of why remorseless retaliation is deserved. The sky is still dark. I'm up well before the first rays of dawn. The emptiness of my quarters presses down on me, painfully stark without Savannah's presence to warm them. Better to train alone while the rest of the camp yet slumbers. I need no witness to my fumbling attempts to reclaim some echo of my former skill. And I need the outlet. Knowing that the dark elves are to be sentenced today makes me restless, almost anxious. I've never felt like this before, I mutter. Before, training kept both my mind and body sharp. In my despair, I've left both to atrophy. No more. I flow through stances and strikes ingrained into my muscle memory. Each movement feels awkward and uncoordinated, with only one hand to guide it. My grip falters as I struggle to find purchase on the hilt of my sword. But I refuse to give up, gritting my teeth and forcing myself through the forms. Sleep eludes me, and so I use this time to strengthen what remains of the warrior within me. With each swing of the wooden blade, my left hand fumbles and misses its target. Frustration boils within me, fueled by the memories of my past as a skilled swordsman. But now, with only one arm, I am reduced to this clumsy imitation of my former self. No matter how fiercely I swing the wooden blade, my left hand cannot match the skill my right once possessed. Each misplaced blow only feeds the simmering anger I can no longer unleash in true combat. Anger at the cursed elf who took my arm, at the fates that reduced me to this fumbling shadow. When the camp begins to stir, avoiding Savannah becomes its own exercise in pain. I take the furthest training dummy to evade crossing her path, but still I catch glimpses of her in the distance. Each time her pale, weary face is a jagged shard through my heart. I want to go to her, to offer the comfort she so clearly needs. Shame and bitterness stay my feet. What good could a broken warrior provide her? I'm a complete embarrassment. Less than a man. She would insist otherwise, but I know the truth. She deserves more than the ruined husk I have become. And so I remain at a distance, enduring the anguish written across her beloved features from afar, pretending my own longing does not scream louder with every accidental sight of her. It is a fresh torture I inflict upon us both, but I see no other path forward. The sharp sting of failure consumes me as morning slowly creeps towards midday. I reach for the flask of potent spirits tucked into my belt, hoping to drown out the overwhelming sense of defeat. Ignoring the blistering pain and blisters forming on my one remaining hand, I throw myself back into the training forms. Each movement is fueled by pure willpower as I shout out the commands, desperately trying to force my awkward body to comply. But no matter how long I immerse myself, the motions feel foreign. The sword, an impostor's weapon. I will never again be the swordsman who could bring legions to their knees. And it's high time I admit it to myself. When at last I stagger back, chest heaving with exertion, my hand is cracked and bleeding. Mastery remains elusive. I stare at the blood and sweat staining the wooden blade as defeat crashes over me. This pain is but an echo of the devastation wrought deep within. In desperation, I long to abandon this fruitless quest, to flee into the wilderness and leave behind all reminders of my former glory. But Savannah's face appears in my mind's eye, anchoring me here. I cannot abandon her, no matter how broken we both may be. My heart pounding with fury, I storm down the winding stone steps to the damp and musty caves where we keep our captured dark elf enemies. I will give them their judgment now. To hell with the council. The guards shift nervously as I approach one of the cells, my hand tight around my sword hilt. The prisoner inside glares back at me, his features twisted in a sneer. You spineless creatures! Is this the pathetic form of victory you boast about? I spit out, gesturing angrily to the empty space where my arm used to be. A searing pain shoots through my body, a constant reminder of my defeat at the hands of this pale elf in front of me. The elf stares back at me with an impassive expression, his arrogance and superiority practically oozing from every pore. I can feel his satisfaction radiating off of him, knowing that it was his kin who brought me to this pathetic state. I slam my fist against the cold metal bars of the prison cell, the sound echoing loudly in the small space. The rattling of the bars only serves to fuel my anger even more. Still, he remains silent, a smug smirk playing on his lips. I can't help but wonder if he even has a conscience, if he feels any guilt for what his kind has done to me. Nothing to say, coward? I taunt, sarcasm dripping from every word. Does it please you, knowing your kin laid me low, knowing that the rest lay cold for it, that you've lost the war? My hand automatically reaches for the flask at my side, and I take a long, sloppy drink, some spilling down my chin in my haste. The liquid burns its way down my throat, and I welcome the sensation, using it to drown out the pain and humiliation that threatens to consume me. Look at me! I shout when he remains silent. Does my suffering warm your malformed heart? His lip curls faintly. It is of no matter to me, one-armed orc. With a roar, I grab the elf by his tunic and smash him against the bars. Guards shout and try to restrain me as I wrap my hand around his throat, blind in my fury. They eventually pry me off the now choking elf. Enough, Daritus! The captain commands. You'll kill him! And it will be too good for him, I snarl back. Takes half the prison staff to pry me off him. What a ridiculous embarrassment. After leaving the prisons, I pace the battlements ceaselessly, my thoughts a tempest of vengeance and loss. I crave retaliation against the elves rotting below. Retribution for all they ripped away. When I pass others, I speak heatedly of the prisoners' fates, demanding public executions to repay blood with blood. Most turn away, growing accustomed to my bitter ravings. Finally, the council convenes to deliberate the elves' final judgment. I pace outside furiously as their discussion drags on. The taste of justice feels so close, I can scarcely breathe for wanting it. When Malik emerges, his face is solemn, bearing no promise of the vengeance I seek. Please, they must pay the ultimate price. I beseech him desperately. The elder places one gnarled hand on my shoulder. You mistake justice for revenge, my son. Such will only hollow your soul further. I open my mouth to protest, but Malik raises a hand. The council's word is final. Rage no more at the winds. It gains you nothing. He hobbles off, leaving me trembling with impotent fury. Once more my pleas go unanswered, my hatred left to curdle and fester. They do not see how these elves' deaths would free me, but I will keep fighting this battle alone.
Chapter 18. Savannah. My days blur together in the aftermath of losing Daritus. I drift through the camp like a spectre, hollow and withdrawn. My spirit, once defiantly bright even in our darkest days, now seems muted. A shadow of my former self, a cheap imposter. Rumours circulate that the coalition army will soon disband and depart with the war's end in sight, and my heart clutches in dread at the thought. We will go our separate ways, all ties severed. Where will I go? I ask my empty tent. The thought keeps me awake day and night, gnawing away at the back of my mind. I try to cling to hope that Daritus will call for me before he leaves, that we can find some way to remain together. But he seems to want nothing to do with me. As the army prepares to scatter to the winds, no word comes from him. Despair threatens to swallow me whole at the thought of facing true isolation, of losing the last flicker of light remaining to me. In quiet moments, I trace the scar on my palm, a mark I gained while we fought off the orcs in the forest more than a year before. A symbol of the bond I believed unbreakable. I cling desperately to shredded hopes, praying each day will not be the one where I must learn to live without my other half. But time continues its merciless march, and still Daritus remains distant. The rope binding us pulled impossibly thin, ready to sever entirely. I have no true home left to return to. The remote village where I was born, my family, all were lost years ago to the ravages of war. I have no tether now but to people, most of whom will soon be scattered across distant lands. Savannah the orphan, forever destined to rootlessness. Even in my blackest moments after losing my blood relatives, new bonds gave me something to live for, the surrogate family I built amongst fellow outcasts and rebels. But now, piece by piece, those ties are being destroyed. First my kin, then my comrades, and now the final lifeline of Daritus's love swiftly unravelling. I'm being cut adrift, anchorless. I yearn to plead with Daritus, to beg him not to slip away and leave me bereft. But shame and doubt seals my lips. Fate seems intent on stripping all light from my world once more. I can only wrap my arms around myself tightly and pray the gathering darkness does not consume me fully. At dinner, I pick at my meal disinterestedly, going through the motions. Surrounded by the cheerful noise of comrades, my sense of detachment only grows more acute. I feel distant from their boisterous camaraderie. My appetite, just another casualty of the melancholy that consumes me. The rich aromas that once tempted me now turn my stomach. Once we return home, the real work begins, Tarlok declares between bites. We must take this momentum and finally spark a true revolution, free this entire planet of dark elves. Those nearby hum and nod in agreement. I stare down at my bowl, their passionate talk of the future sliding past me. Right, Savannah? Tarlok asks, nudging my foot under the table. I know you'll stand with us when the time comes. I look up and force a wan smile. Of course, I say dully. I know I should share their fervour, but cannot muster the energy. Tarlok frowns slightly but continues on. With the elves toppled, we can finally build the world we've dreamed of. Renewed cheers greet this proclamation. My gaze drifts over the animated faces of my comrades, their words fading to background noise. How can they be so hopeful? I wish I could cling to their optimism, but inside me there is only a cold void where hope once flickered. The world they envision feels impossibly distant. I cannot see beyond the emptiness of the present. Their chatter washes over me unheard as I withdraw further into numb solitude. Perhaps one day their faith will rekindle my own extinguished spark. But not today. Today, I am lost. An island amidst a sea of camaraderie I can no longer share in. So I simply nod and smile faintly as expected, disconnected from all but the aching chasm in my heart. Just imagine it, my friends, Tarlok declares passionately. No more scrabbling in the mud while the dark elves hunt us down like dogs. We will take back the riches and power wrongfully kept from us. He sweeps his gaze around the table, eyes alight with fervour. the elves' plans will crumble. On its ruins, we will build the world as it was meant to be, under Orcish rule. Murmurs of agreement rise up. I stare down at my barely touched stew, saying nothing. He slams his fist on the table, rattling dishes. Only say the word, my friends, and we will rid this world of all the elves who defile it. More cheers and enthusiastic shouts. I force a wan smile, echoing the empty enthusiasm. In truth, his lofty words barely penetrate the fog enveloping me. Tarlok's eyes shine as he warms to his vision. Together we will... He chokes, face contorting in sudden agony, and collapses backward off the bench amid cries of alarm. It starts with Tarlok, but soon more around the hall begin choking and convulsing without warning. The first few are thought mere drunkards, but then the pattern reveals itself. This is coordinated and swift. Shouts of alarm quickly shift to utter chaos as bodies drop rapidly. Friends try in vain to aid the afflicted, only to find themselves victim next. Fear and confusion rule as poison spreads inexorably through the ranks. Soldiers collapse mid-laugh, their faces vanishing beneath the table's surface. Some lunge away from imagined dangers before crumpling to the ground, limbs askew. Cries for help mix with screams of pain and desperate pleas to unseen assailants. Many try to flee, only to feel the toxin's savage bite and sprawl to the floor mere steps later. A few stalwarts attempt to brace the doors, keeping death's tide contained, but I can see the horror in their eyes. Seasoned veterans and green youths alike find their strength sapped in an instant. Some knock plates and cups aside in their throes, sending food and drink spilling across the wood and stone. The air fills with shouted oaths, prayers and bargains cut short by convulsions. And everywhere, the sound of bodies falling heavy, their lights extinguished. Chaos engulfs the dining hall as more individuals fall victim to the unseen venom. I back against the wall, paralysed by the scene, until a strangled cry for help cuts through my detachment. One of the cooks lies convulsing nearby, face purpling. I rush to her, turning her on her side to prevent choking. The others are too panicked to aid each other. I call for order, organising triage efforts. We must get the living out of this contaminated space. Working swiftly, we drag the most critical casualties towards the infirmary. It's overflowing fast, cots all occupied. We place the dying on makeshift pallets, using tablecloths for shrouds. I hold friends as the end nears, offering hollow comfort amidst racking spasms of pain. Each light extinguished leaves an icy void behind. When there's the slightest lull in the chaos, I find a corner and collapse, exhausted mentally and physically. But training takes over and I rise again, moving automatically to assist the healers still battling death's toll. My world narrows to this: the never-ending flow of wounded, the screams, the hollow eyes of the dead. I immerse myself fully in the battle, unable to face what will remain when it ends. All around, the infirmary beds fill with members of our camp, their lives now hanging by the most fragile of threads. Healers rush about, administering increasingly desperate remedies with little effect. The poison's work cannot be undone, only slowed for a short while. I read the truth in their grim faces. Few will survive this night. Some victims thrash and cry out, trapped in endless torment. Others lie unnervingly still, their emptied eyes staring through me from sunken faces drained of vitality. They are just husks now, their essential spark extinguished. I mourn each passing, even as I long for release from their suffering. I want to run, but I can't. I can't let them die alone. The moans of the dying and smell of poison are a grim echo chamber of my deepest fears made real. The spectre of loss looms, haunting me anew. Night closes in as we labour on, the infirmary's cramped confines illuminated by guttering torches and candles pressed into service. Outside, the camp is on high alert for any further threats. In the flickering shadows, whispers slither of treachery and conspiracy. As I mechanically tend to the ailing, my mind races to make sense of this madness. Who has done this? Why? Revenge? Political ploy? I dredge up old rumours. Could this be the work of remaining dark elves? No, we routed them already, unless some yet lurk in hiding, biding their time. Speculation breeds fear and mistrust in already strained hearts. None feel safe. But no answers emerge, only a rising toll and dwindling hope as the night wears on. In the end, reasons hardly matter. Death cares not about the hand that deals it, only the lives cruelly reaped. As the candles sputter out one by one, so too do the poison's victims exhale their last ragged breaths.
Chapter 19. Daritus. Panic and chaos rip through the ranks of soldiers as they suddenly collapse, victims of an unknown poison. The air is thick with shouts and screams as we all scramble to figure out what is happening. My heart races in my chest as a spike of concern pierces through my melancholy. I desperately search for any sign of Savannah. I join the surge of bodies rushing to contain the crisis, my mind racing with fear and worry. A guard confirms that no tainted food or drink was found. This was a deliberate act. Fury begins to fill me at the thought of someone intentionally harming our soldiers. Whispers and speculation spread like wildfire, some pointing to remaining dark elves as the culprits. My hand instinctively goes to my sword hilt before I remember my diminished capacity. Frustration mixes with fear as I am unable to take action in this crucial moment. Scouts are hastily dispatched to search for signs of elves in hiding. I itch to join them, to face a tangible enemy rather than the ghosts in my mind. But I know I would only be a liability now. As veterans succumb despite their hardened constitutions, dread gnaws at me. I still haven't seen Savannah. Terror spurs me to action. Amidst the overwhelming chaos, I'm able to gather only fragments of information, whispers in hushed tones, fearful glances exchanged between survivors. I saw her at dinner, an orc says. She's folded in on herself, shaking. My heart plummets. I open my mouth, but I can't speak. If she's dead, I don't want to know. I can't know. I've done nothing but push her away. She's alive, the orc croaks. I don't know why, but we weren't affected. We carried as many people as we could to the infirmary, but there was nothing. The orc begins to sob, and I breathe out in relief. She's alive. It is later when Moloch seeks me out in private. The lines etched on his weathered face are carved into his craggy face even deeper as he speaks with a grave tone. Dark events require our brightest light. I entrust the task of discovering the root of this poison to you alone. You can't think another orc is involved in this. It must be the elves. He stares at me, face grimmer than I've ever seen him. I assume nothing, and neither shall you. Find who did this. His faith in me, despite my perceived brokenness, leaves me momentarily speechless. I bow my head, determined to not let him down. I will not fail you. He claps my shoulder with surprising strength. You will not, and you never have. His wisdom washes over me, kindling the spirit my injury had dimmed. Purpose begins to eclipse disabling grief and rage. I swear I will unravel this mystery and avenge our fallen. I make my way outside, the cool breeze brushing against my skin as I quickly make my way to the feasting tents. The smell of roasting meats and spices fills the air, mingling with the sounds of clanging pots and pans. They aren't cooking. They're searching the kitchen, desperate to find the source of the poison. The tents are a flurry of activity, with cooks scurrying back and forth, their expressions tense and anxious. As I enter, their eyes dart up nervously, anticipating some kind of disaster. My eyes scan over the group of women standing before me. One human woman, her hair a tide of silver waves, steps forward apprehensively. Her face is etched with worry, and her eyes are red and swollen from crying. I must know exactly what occurred here, I state without preamble, my voice firm but not accusatory. We prepared the meal the same as always, she insists, her voice trembling as tears immediately flood down her cheeks. Nothing seemed amiss. I hold up a hand in a calming gesture. I'm not placing blame, but any detail, no matter how small, may help prevent more loss. My gaze sweeps over the rest of the scullery staff, urging them to speak up if they have anything to add. The room is filled with a tense silence as they all wait for someone to break it with new information. The cook nods reluctantly, her eyes darting to a scarred young man who is vigorously scrubbing pots nearby. I raise an eyebrow, sensing something amiss. Did you have new helpers working here? I inquire. The woman hesitates before responding. Yes, refugees assigned to us, she admits with a troubled expression. I consider this information thoughtfully, my gaze shifting towards the brooding figure of the hulking youth who has been keeping to himself. Did any of them behave strangely while preparing the food? I probe further. Her brows furrow in concentration as she recalls the events. The big one? He kept apart from the rest. Didn't speak with anyone, she reveals with a hint of unease. Intrigued, I approach the hulking youth slowly, studying his guarded demeanor. His head stays down, avoiding my gaze as if trying to hide something. What is your name? I ask conversationally, hoping to break through his defensive shell. He mumbles something inaudible, still evasive and distant. My next query cuts through sharply. Did you poison the food? His head jerks up, eyes wild for an instant before he growls. No, I did nothing wrong. I watch his shifting gaze closely, analyzing if deceit or fear fuels this behavior. I can't tell. More questions are needed before judgment can be passed. Leaving the kitchens for now, I make my way to the scene of the poisoning itself, the now deserted communal eating benches. I scrutinize the remains of meals left in the panicked evacuation, seeking clues. Plates with half-eaten food provide potential samples of the tainted fare. I gather a few for the healers to examine, donning gloves to avoid contact. If the poison's origin can be traced, we are one step closer. Returning to the kitchens, lost in thought, I'm startled to find Savannah questioning the staff. Her presence derails my simmering anger. What are you doing here? I demand gruffly. Savannah meets my gaze levelly. Same as you, trying to make sense of this horror. I scoff before I can stop myself. This is no matter for non-soldiers. Leave it to those seasoned in such things. Hurt flashes across her face before her expression hardens. My friends lie dying as we speak. Do not dismiss my stake in this. I won't see you harmed. You won't see me at all, she snaps. Let me do my job. Espionage is my specialty, not yours. This is truly a grievous crime with the potential for more tragedy to come, I insist. Whoever is behind this must be apprehended swiftly. Her jaw sets stubbornly. All the more reason for us both to investigate. My insight could be valuable. I cannot allow it. I hesitate, conflicted between concern for her safety and desire for her company. It is exceptionally dangerous. Don't speak to me as if I don't know danger, Savannah counters, green eyes flashing. You would have me stand idle when there is an opportunity to prevent further suffering? You are not trained for interrogations or evidence gathering. Listening to whispers is not the same. If the culprit is still in our camp, as Malik seems to suggest, even the suspicion of her investigating will put her in grave danger. Savannah's eyes flash. You think I'm helpless? I've conducted my share of covert inquiries. I slash a hand angrily through the air. Investigating supply pilfering is not the same. Whoever did this is vicious, and will not hesitate to kill again. Supply pilfering, Savannah retorts, incensed. We met as I evacuated a human settlement. How do you think I got that information? Idly sitting in camp, listening to whispers? My whole life has been sacrificed for our cause. We stand toe-to-toe, tempers dangerously high. I know I should back down, but stubbornness and fear push me on. "Just stay out of it, Savannah! This is no job for a human civilian," I spit dismissively. Savannah reels as if struck. Then her face closes up, eyes gone cold. "If that is how you feel, Commander, I'll leave this to the real soldiers." She turns sharply, cloak swirling as she storms away. I stand frozen, regret hitting me instantly, cursing my clumsy handling. "Savannah, wait!" I call desperately after her fleeing back. But she does not look back or slow, disappearing swiftly from view. Shame threatens to crush me at having hurt her so needlessly. I yearn to run after her, but force myself to stay put. I have already caused enough damage this black day. Perhaps she is safer far from me after all.
Chapter 20. Savannah. My steps echo off the wooden planks of the canteen as I storm away from my heated argument with Daritus. My angry words still ring in my ears, but it's not anger I feel. It's hurt and confusion. Does he really think so little of me? As I weave through the camp, I can feel the emotions churning inside of me. I break free from the bustling centre of camp and make my way towards the woods surrounding the camp. It's my go-to spot for peace and solitude, but tonight it feels too quiet, too lonely. My thoughts are consumed by doubts about my fractured relationship with Daritus. Before I reach the gates of the camp, a faint rustle captures my attention. My senses go into overdrive as I scan the area for any sign of movement. A shadowy figure catches my eye, moving stealthily between the tents up ahead. Their furtive movements and hushed whispers pique my curiosity, and I find myself drawn to them despite the danger. "Who is this?" I murmur to myself. Everyone else in camp is reeling from the recent disaster, not sneaking around. Without hesitation, I trail carefully after the mysterious person, using all of my spycraft skills to follow undetected. My argument with Daritus lingers bitter in my mind, fueling my defiance now. I will prove that I am capable of unravelling secrets on my own. We near the edge of camp, slipping through pooled shadows. I strain for a glimpse of the figure's face beneath their dark hood. A feminine gait teases my memory. Can it be? As she pauses at the perimeter and glances back, the moonlight illuminates her features for an instant. Shock staggers me. It's Sherbet, the kind orphanage worker. What possible business does she have out here? So many orcs have died. Grimly, I think that the children in camp need an orphanage worker now more than ever. Is she running from her responsibility, overwhelmed, or does she have darker motives? Burning with more questions, I track Sherbet deep into the woods. Each step takes us farther from safety, but she shows no hesitation. And I cannot turn back until I uncover the full truth. The canopy of trees blocks out all but the faintest slivers of moonlight, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. The thick underbrush grabs at my legs as we push deeper into the unknown. My cloak offers little protection from the biting cold of the night air. The shadows around me appear to ripple and writhe, concealing unknown threats. Beasts lurk in these woods that would make a meal out of either of us, and all I carry is my knife. Sherbet, as far as I'm aware, has never been one for hunting or weaponry. Every snapping branch and rustle sets my nerves on edge. What compels Sherbet onward so fearlessly through these woods? My steps falter as doubts creep in like insidious vines, questioning my wisdom in shadowing her alone into the bowels of darkness. I ought to call for help, but stubbornness and suspicion spur me onward. I must discover what secrets she hides, and I can't risk losing track of her in the woods. I loosen my knife in its sheath, seeking comfort as the foreboding woods press ever closer around us. The rich blend of sounds from the forest, the gentle rustling of leaves, the scurrying footsteps of unseen creatures, crescendo and then fade away to an eerie silence. The hairs on my neck stand on end. Sherbet shows no reaction, moving steadily on through the heavy hush. My senses scream that peril lurks among the now unnaturally still trees. She's being watched, measured. My pulse quickens, nerves tingling. I scan the woods, seeking the source of the threat. The shadows seem to skitter and detach themselves from the trees. Then, there, a flash of gleaming eyes. The darkness shifted and the moonlight caught on the sharp points of blades, held by long-limbed, hooded figures emerging from the night like ghosts. Dark elves. A menacing patrol of them, their silent movements sending shivers down spines, and their hooded faces cloaked in shadow. The glint of moonlight on their weapons was both beautiful and terrifying, a deadly dance in the blackness. I wait for Sherbet to stumble back, and I prepare to fight to the death to defend us both. Then, the longer she and the elves stare at one another, I begin to pray that they'll attack. Pray that I'm wrong. The elves make no immediate move to attack her. Some silent intent holds them back, though violence clearly simmers beneath the surface. Sherbet appears unperturbed. What sinister purpose has brought her to this shadowed glen under cold, unblinking eyes? I know it. I've known it since she stood before them in this clearing. But when they speak, I feel the truth of her betrayal. Hello, our dear human friend. They're her allies. Of course she doesn't fear them. As a kind and nurturing orphanage matron, she has been secretly colluding with our enemies this whole time. The realization hits me like a tidal wave, stealing my breath and blinding me to the truth beneath her familiar face. Even my usually cynical eyes were blind to the betrayal and conspiracy happening right under our noses. With this truth revealed, the full danger of my situation crashes down. I am utterly outnumbered, deep in the elves' domain. My next move could easily be my last. How could she betray us like this? How many lives did she sacrifice for her own gain? My heart is torn between wanting to exact revenge and pure, unrelenting grief for what she's done. I inch backwards, my knife shaking in my hand, as I try to blend into the shadows. If I can just slip away undetected, maybe I can find a way to stop her without being caught in the crossfire. But the thought of leaving her unpunished also makes my blood boil. Conflicted, I try to work through my emotions and make a decision before it's too late. As I make a slight movement, the elf closest to Sherbet places a hand on her shoulder. His violet eyes nearly glow in the dark, and they meet mine unflinchingly. He murmurs in Sherbet's ear, and she turns. "You will not be going anywhere, human," she hisses, her pale eyes burning with intense hatred as they fix on me. "Traitor! You make me sick." I spit at her with all the vitriol I can manage. "What do you know about betrayal?" Sherbet asks. "Your life is betrayal. You've seen what the orcs have done to us. You've lost your own family to their violence. And what have you done to avenge your kin? Sit at the orcs' heels like some sad dog." "Hazen's camp has been nothing but good to you and all the humans in it," I snap. "Go ask your new friends how they treat the humans in their care. You've seen the woman we rescued from them return as nothing more than husks." "You know nothing," she hisses, turning back towards the elves. But before I can speak again, Sherbet interrupts with a voice so cold it sends shivers down my spine. "She has seen too much now. We cannot risk her carrying warnings back to our enemies." The weight of her words hits me like a brick, and I know that my fate has been decided by these ruthless beings. It's hard to breathe. Spots appear in my vision, even as I struggle to keep my demeanour calm. The elf's lips curl into a cruel smile at this unspoken plea for violence. Behind her, the rest of the elven warriors fan out, their weapons catching the light and glinting with malice. "It seems you have come to the end of your trail, little spy," she taunts. "Did you think I didn't know? All those times you snuck out of camp all superior, like you were special. I'm twice the spy you've ever been, and you never even guessed." "They'll kill you too, you absolute freaking fool." She doesn't believe me. Sherbet's once kind eyes are now filled with distant malice. We are nothing but helpless prey in their trap. With a trembling hand, I hold my knife aloft and try to edge away from the encroaching elves, but there is no escape from their closing snare. In a final act of desperation, I pray that my death will be swift. But as the elves attack, their movements graceful and deadly like creatures of the night, I know that my fate is sealed. I let out one final cry of warning, hoping that the orcs in camp can hear.
Chapter 21. Daritus. Sitting in my small, dimly lit quarters, I am consumed by the aftermath of my fight with Savannah. Emotions churn violently within me. Bitter regret viciously battles my instinct to retreat and sever ties with her. I can still feel the sting of her words, like a fresh wound that refuses to heal. Worse, I can still see the hurt in her eyes as I stung her first. My mind replays the moment I let my emotions control me, instead of listening to reason. The walls seem to close in on me as I struggle with the weight of my mistakes. "It's for the best," I mutter. "I know that it's wisest for us to keep our distance now, before we destroy whatever fragile bonds are left between us. The thought of being apart from her only adds to the ache in my heart, but staying close also means risking more pain and heartache. It seems that neither choice holds any promise of hope for us anymore. I wish that I loved her even slightly less. Restless, I rise and pace, seeking an answer that eludes me. If I could just think clearly, unclouded by longing or hurt, I might decide on a way forward. But weariness and anguish fog my mind, leaving only doubt behind. A sharp rap on the door jolts me out of my brooding. I turn to see one of the guards standing outside, fidgeting nervously. "Excuse me, sir, but we cannot seem to locate the woman Savannah. No one has seen her for at least an hour." A surge of panic shoots through me, dispelling all conflicting thoughts. "She's missing?" I ask brusquely. The guard nods, avoiding my gaze. Without another word, I push past him with urgent strides. "I told her this was dangerous." As I storm toward Savannah's quarters, the guard scrambles to keep up with me. Sweat beads on his forehead as he speaks. One of our sentries reported seeing Savannah leaving camp just as dusk settled over the sky. She headed straight for the woods. I come to a sudden stop, turning to face him. The woods? Did they see why she went there? My heart starts pounding with worry. The woods are not a safe place, especially after dark. What could have driven her there? The guard nods gravely. "Yes, sir. She seemed to be following someone stealthily. Our school teacher, Miss Sherbet, who works with the orphans." As he speaks her name, a sinking feeling settles in my stomach. Why would Savannah be secretly trailing our teacher? Something is not right here. "The school teacher?" I repeat, trying to make sense of it all. The guard's expression confirms what he said. Dread creeps up my spine. There is definitely more to this situation than meets the eye. My pulse quickens with dread. Savannah's spy instincts detected some subterfuge, and she pursued it alone, heedless of the danger. If the teacher is to blame, I don't think she's wandering off into the forest alone. She'll be meeting with dark elves or whoever else is to blame. I must find her before more harm can be done. I clasp the guard's shoulder firmly. "Gather a search team. We leave immediately." He rushes off to obey as I stare into the shadows of the woods. "Be safe, Savannah," I plead silently. "Hold on until I can reach you. I will not lose you again." The chilled night air helps focus my racing thoughts. If Sherbet has betrayed us and lured Savannah into danger, I cannot let black imaginings distract me now. With wary steps, I approach Sherbet's dwelling. Dark and silent, it seems devoid of life, but I trust my instincts screaming of deception underneath her gentle facade. I enter swiftly, senses heightened for any sign of who the teacher might be meeting, but the rooms are empty and undisturbed, offering no easy answers. Frustration and dread gnaw at my composure as I search urgently for any hint of Sherbet's plans. Savannah's life may depend on what I uncover here, but only shadowy mysteries taunt me, concealing the truth I desperately seek Then a faint wrongness teases my awareness, the barest whiff of something sinister lurking beneath the innocent surface. I follow the instinct to a trapped space behind the cold hearth. My breath stops when I unlatch the hidden cache. Its contents glitter darkly. A scrap of cloth depicts the sigil of the Steel Tribe, an exiled band of radical orcs, and a severed braid I recognize with a chill. This belonged to their fanatical leader, slain by Savannah. My pulse races. The Steel Tribe is alive and wants vengeance on Savannah. This is no random poisoner. Sherbet is their agent, placed ingeniously within our own walls. Among Sherbet's possessions, I uncover a journal scrawled with venomous rantings that expose the depths of her duplicity. Page after page details her role as architect of deceit, the poison only the first deadly stroke. With growing horror, I read her graphic plans to eliminate Savannah, blaming my friend for past defeats. Madness bleeds from every bitter word. This woman is the embodiment of all-consuming hatred. Sherbet clearly has set her vile schemes in motion. And unwitting, brave Savannah raced right into her crosshairs, believing she is protecting our people. My hands shake with the need for urgent action. But the notebook also reveals Sherbet has conspired with a Dark Elf splinter faction, it seems. Poison was but the precursor to a larger assault. Cursing myself for not foreseeing this threat, I stuffed the journal inside my tunic. Savannah faces mortal danger if Sherbet carries out her final maniacal design. I cannot delay a moment longer. Emerging into darkness, I force myself to halt and breathe. Succumbing to panic and racing blindly will only make matters worse. I must carry this warning back with composure. The full weight of responsibility settles across my shoulders. Moloch must be told an attack bruise, the camp's safety now precarious, but my heart strains to race directly to Savannah this instant. I yearn to abandon all else and fly to her side, to save her with my own hands. But doing so could doom hundreds if the camp is caught unaware when the storm hits. Cursing fate for cutting such cruel choices, I sprint for Moloch's quarters. With each pounding stride, I wage an internal war duty, or heart, caution, or desperation. My mind races, pulled violently in both directions. But as the Elder's tent nears, the well-being of the many wins out. I cannot justify sacrificing everyone for one soul, even one so dear. A leader protects first, feels later. Breathless, I burst into Moloch's quarters and waste no time relaying all I uncovered in a rush. The Elder's face tightens with each revelation, mirroring the dire severity we face. Sherbet has conspired with surviving elves for a final attack, I finish grimly. One that begins with poison but ends in fire according to her mad writings. I toss her journals on his desk. Moloch's expression remains unchanged, but plans clearly turn behind his eyes. Then we make ready. Go swiftly and gather the... His orders are cut short by a tremendous explosion that shakes the very ground beneath our feet. Shouts of alarm rise as guards burst in. The elven prisoners, they've escaped. The war for our very survival is upon us. I lock down my terror for Savannah's fate. There is only the enemy before me, and the many lives depending on my blade. I charge into the fray, letting old instincts take over, and pray to all gods that we weather this storm, that I may yet see Savannah again, even if only to say goodbye.
If someone had told me a month ago that I would be running for my life instead of sitting in the stuffy classroom of the bordello, preparing to be sold off to Indoor, I would have laughed.
The forest is not your safe space, little one.
But there's no avoiding my fate.
It's you. You're the one.
I've spent my entire life training to be the perfect bride for the top-bidding Dark Elf. So much can change in so little time.
You understand why you're being punished, right, child?
Your blood. It sings to me.
Please, let me out of here.
You need to learn your place.
But what are you? Where are you taking me?
Run!
I'm a bringer of death.
No, you're not dying. I won't let you.
You won't be able to get out.
Let me go, please.
Sadie, I will make you mine.
Chapter 22. Savannah. Steel flashes towards my throat, and instinct takes over. I throw myself backward, Sherbet's blade hissing past inches from my skin. My daggers rise automatically into a duelist stance to face her unrelenting assault. My voice trembles with anger as I growl out the words, "You traitorous wretch!" Each strike of my knife is fueled by betrayal and hurt. How could you? Sherbet's response is filled with disdain as she effortlessly parries my attacks. Traitor? What do you know of honour? Her words sting like venom. Spreading your legs for the same creatures that slaughter and enslave us, you make me sick. Despite her strength, I refuse to back down. With every clash of our swords, I hope for a moment of distraction that could lead to my rescue. My muscles ache and sweat drips down my forehead, but I keep fighting, determined to survive. All this time, I'd thought we were friends. The dark elf sentinels watch silently from the trees as we two women clash again and again. Sherbet fights with vicious precision, her once kind eyes now brimming with venomous hatred aimed solely at me. I dodge and parry desperately, utilising every dirty trick I know. But Sherbet is no amateur. She anticipates my every move, leaving me constantly a half-step behind. Still, I will not surrender or beg for mercy. If my life ends tonight in this shadowed glen, I will make the traitor earn her so-called victory. I bite back pain as her knife nicks my side, blood blooming across my tunic. The wounds and close calls mount, my reactions growing sluggish. Somewhere my people sleep, oblivious to the viper in their midst. I cling to that thought, refusing to fall before I ensure they are warned. Just when my strength seems spent, the dark elves step forward, pale blades ready to deliver the final strokes. But Sherbet throws out an arm, staying their attack. "No, she's mine," the traitor snarls, mad obsession twisting her once kind features. Her focus narrows solely to me, vengeance now a feverish light in her eyes. The elves withdraw with muted menace, ceding us space as our fight continues. Steel rings through the trees with each crushing blow. Our voices mingle in cries of effort and pain, hers a mindless frenzy, mine increasingly desperate. Still somehow I hold my own, summoning reserves of will to match her deranged onslaught. Blood stains our blades and seeps into the thirsty earth beneath our feet. But I am only flesh and bone. As her blade comes within a hair of spilling my throat, I know my strength is spent. She seems to sense it too, eyes lighting with triumph. I am out of tricks and time. "Forgive me, Daritus," I plead as her blade sails toward me. Just before the death blow lands, I dodge and Sherbet's knife finds my shoulder instead, sinking deep. Agony spears through me, but also adrenaline. I pivot on instinct, kicking her back and dealing a retaliatory slash. Pressing my small advantage, I break away, blood trailing behind as I run. Escape and warning the others, that is all that matters now. I ignore Sherbet's enraged screams at the elves to recapture me, but the dark ones, so silent before, now hiss with displeasure at being ordered about. As I'm forced down again, their leader backhands Sherbet viciously, sending her sprawling. "Know your place, pathetic traitor bastard," she warns. Unhinged Sherbet just cackles, unbothered by open contempt from her supposed allies. Ruthless hands bind me as Sherbet rises, knife glinting wetly in the moonlight. "Now, where were we?" she croons, deranged anticipation twisting her features. My time is measured now in heartbeats and gasps of pain. Despair crashes over me as the knives descend once more. My wrists bleed against the cruel bonds, but still I thrash with what little strength remains. Even captured and outmatched, my spirit refuses to break before these traitors. Sherbet paces before me, muttering feverishly about revenge and restoring her exiled tribe's power. The unhinged ranting reveals the depths of her twisted obsession and the web of lies she spun. With dawning horror, I recognize the signs and symbols she babbles of. This woman who nurtured orphans was once high priestess of the Steel Tribe, exiled radical orcs. Her gentle facade hid the heart of a zealot. Even as her knife traces my skin, I meet Sherbet's crazed eyes unflinchingly. You will never restore your tribe's name, I vow. I helped destroy them once for good reason. Their darkness dies with you this night. Sherbet screams incoherently and slashes, but rage lends me strength to twist away. I will not make it easy for her, no matter what befalls. I spit blood at her feet in defiance. Let death find me unbowed, unbroken in spirit, if not body. I try to rise to warn someone, but my ravaged body will not obey. All I can do is force my eyes to stay open, fixed in the direction I know my people lie sleeping, unaware of the danger at their doorstep. Daritus, forgive me. I plead silently into the dark. But the void grows ever deeper, stealing sight and sound and sensation. With my last shred of strength, I shape a final prayer, hoping somehow he will hear my love before the end arrives on terrible wings. Then the darkness embraces me completely, and I know no more. A thunderous boom shatters the night air, rumbling from the direction of our camp with sinister promise. My heart drops into my stomach. I couldn't warn them in time. Mustering the last scrap of my strength, I force out a ragged cry. No! The primal syllable rings with desperation. A litany of names cycles through my mind, those I care for who slumber innocently towards calamity. But one echoes loudest of all, Daritus. My unfinished business, the missed chance to make amends, perhaps to even dream of a future. Stand strong, my friends. Have courage. Though I cannot fight at your side this final hour, my spirit ever remains with you. The rest lies beyond my hands.
Chapter 23. Daritus. The air is filled with screams as elven invaders emerge from the shadows, launching their attack under cover of night. We're caught off guard by the trap. My instincts as a warrior kick in, preparing me for battle even as my mind races with fear. I cannot help but think of Savannah. She is out there, unaware of the danger. I regret letting duty keep me from her side when danger is so close. Now, all I can do is hope that she has survived this onslaught and pray that I find her before the ruthless elves do. Malik rallies our defenses with bellowed commands, marshalling troops to meet the surprise incursion. But my eyes stray to the shadowed tree line, imagining beloved features lying too still beneath those cold boughs. Junior officers tug at my arm, desperate for orders to repel the breach. With immense effort, I force my gaze away from the woods. Leadership demands crushing feelings beneath the boots of necessity. So I steady my voice and issue concise instructions. I need reserves to reinforce the crumbling prison quarters line. But my thoughts stray back to the forest, and the reckoning I fear awaits in its depths. Hold on, Savannah. I'm coming. All around chaos erupts and I'm lost, adrift. Malik grabs my arm and pulls me aside, his sharp gaze cutting through my facade. He knows the inner turmoil that consumes me, the constant battle between duty and desire. Your heart is at war, he growls knowingly. Perhaps it holds the answers you seek. It's just like him to cut exactly to the core of the matter, and I grimace, reprimanded for my weakness. I apologize, sir, but the woman I love is out there. I begin to protest, my words falling on deaf ears as Malik raises a commanding hand. Our efforts mean nothing if there is no one to share them with. Duty is meaningless without love. His eyes bore into mine, ancient wisdom and truth emanating from their depths. You have spent your life fulfilling obligations to others. Now fulfill them for your own happiness. I struggle with conflicting emotions before finally blurting out, "You want me to abandon my post, risk everything for one person's life?" Malik smiles sadly. "Not abandon, only follow the compass of your spirit. Trust others to take up your mantle for a time. They know it is not forever. His sage words erode my hesitation. He's right. My loyal troops stand ready to cover the breach. Malik squeezes my shoulder, nodding. Go to her. We will keep the home fires lit for your return. With a last clasp of Malik's hand, I turn and race for the one life that means everything. Before love itself is lost to darkness. I sprint desperately toward the camp gates, and a dark scout intercepts me at the edge of the central courtyard. Ready for combat despite my maimed arm, I duck his wild blade swing and seize his outstretched limb in turn. Channeling explosive desperation, I swing the slender elf brutally into a nearby brazier. His spine hits the iron with a sickening crunch before he crumples, wholly limp. I dispassionately discard the corpse, heedless of the grisly display. Heaving breath into starved lungs, I stare at my one remaining hand, curled into a deadly instrument once more. Let them see what lengths I will go to for love, a lesson their kind has often forgotten. Please hold on, I entreat her silently amidst the distant sounds of battle. I swear on all we hold dear, this night will not claim you, not while I still draw breath. May the gods have mercy on any who stand in my way, for I will unleash hell itself to shelter those I hold dear. Savannah's scream cuts through the sound of battle. It lances into my heart, but also guides me towards her. With reckless speed, I launch myself across the chaotic grounds. The woods loom closer, both haven and threat. Friends and monsters lurk among the whipping branches and concealing leaves. I cut down who I must and keep running. She is close. My heart knows it with certainty. And with that promise ahead, nothing can stop me. Just hold on, Savannah, I plead as I reach the shadowy border between order and chaos. I'm coming. I burst into a clearing wreathed in mist, eyes desperately scanning for any sign of Savannah through the swirling fog. Ghostly shapes loom ominously but reveal nothing. The thick mist surrounding me parts for an instant, revealing a scene that makes my heart drop into my stomach. Two menacing dark elves hold the limp form of Savannah between them, their cruel and twisted features illuminated by the faint moonlight. As I watch, paralyzed with dread, one of the elves brutally grasps her long hair, forcing her head still. Sherbet, the innocent teacher, arches a knife high and prepares to bring it down against Savannah's throat. A surge of red rage washes over me, burning away any trace of fear or hesitation. The sight of these vile creatures poised over Savannah's helpless body ignites a fury within me. With a primal roar erupting from my chest, I charge heedlessly into the clearing, determined to save her at all costs. I launch myself at the elf holding Savannah's hair, the weight and ferocity of my attack enough to send us both crashing to the ground. The impact is bone-shattering, but my anger and desperation fuel me as I pummel him with savage blows. In a frenzy, I unleash every ounce of my rage and fear upon him without mercy. His screams are drowned out by my own furious roar as I rain down punches and kicks, my vision blurred with tears and bloodlust. The elf's resistance finally gives way beneath my relentless assault, his body limp and lifeless in mere moments. But even as I stand over his broken form, panting and trembling with adrenaline, my fury still rages on. I turn to the other elf, who had backed away in terror, dropping Savannah in his haste to flee. But escape will not come so easily for him. Still consumed by volcanic wrath, I lunge towards him with snarling ferocity and seize his ankle in an iron grip, determined to make him pay for the pain he caused. By the time my vision clears, two mangled corpses lie oozing at my feet. I stand over them, breaths ragged, and dare any other foe to challenge love's fury. None emerge from the whispering trees. Sherbet has fled into the forest. Let the beast devour her if they find her before I do. With the immediate threat eliminated, my wrath shifts to anguish as I rush to Savannah's side. I gently lift her limp body, cradling her close against my chest. Her lack of response terrifies me, but shallow breaths still move her chest. Blood mats her clothes from unseen wounds, but for now all that matters is the sweet relief of her living warmth in my arm again. I'm here now, my brave one, I murmur, voice cracking. I smooth back her hair, heedless of the grime and gore staining my hand. She yet draws breath. That is all either of us need.
Chapter 24. Savannah. Agony drags me back from oblivion. My world narrows to pulsating pain, and the iron tang of blood flooding my mouth. I cling desperately to this harsh awareness. It means somehow I still live. A distant roar pierces the fog of my thoughts. That voice. Could it be? Daritus? My heart quickens, but it only serves to pump more blood out of my body. The brief burst of energy soon gutters out, leaving me drained. My leaden eyes refuse to open fully. All seems swallowed by churning mist, shadows moving violently within. I cannot make sense of the blurred shapes and muffled sounds. Daritus, I rasp. My sight is bleary, but I know it's him. Something primal within me recognizes the cadence of violence, the wet impacts of flesh on flesh, the sound of his battle cry. A struggle rages nearby, though my mind is too clouded to grasp whether it bodes ill or well. Another gurgling wail splits the air, abruptly silenced. Then, nothing. As my consciousness slowly returns, I am aware of gentle movement and the sensation of a powerful arm enveloping me. Through the haze of agony, I struggle to believe it is not merely a figment of my dying mind. I have you. It's Daritus, or it's my imagination. I don't care if he's really here, or merely a figment of my dying imagination. I cling to this vision, desperately grasping at the hope of finding solace in Daritus's embrace. Please let me hold on to this fleeting comfort before the end consumes me completely. The throbbing ache of my wounds intensifies, jolting through my body with each movement. At this moment, I would give anything for an end to this suffering. But against all odds, Dream's urgent voice urges me to hold on. Pressure against my neck makes me cry out. It hurts. That means you're alive, Daritus says. You must bear it for now. With immense effort, I force my heavy eyelids to flutter open. And there he is, Daritus, his beloved face holding a fear I've never seen in his eyes. It's not a dream, it's real. A surge of joy momentarily overcomes my pain. But our shared relief is brief as the motion aggravates my injuries. Waves of fiery agony rack my body, stealing the very breath from my lungs. Through it all, Daritus clutches me close, repeating fervent assurances I will survive this ordeal. And though doubt wars with hope, in his arms I allow myself to believe. The healers are close. Stay awake. Darkness rises to reclaim me, and though he urges me to keep my eyes open, they begin to flutter closed. Time loses meaning until a crash and angry shouts stir me once more. My eyelids once more struggle to open against the searing pain, my vision clouded and hazy. I see Daritus, outnumbered by 3 bloodthirsty elves, unleashing a savage fury upon them with every ounce of his strength. But their numbers are too great without his good arm, and they set to work overwhelming him in a tangled mess of limbs and weapons. My heart pounds as I realise that he needs me, and I push through the agony to reach him before it's too late. Every fibre of my being wants only to sink back into nothingness, but not if it means Daritus joins me there. Inch by agonising inch, I drag my body across tangled roots and stones. Each movement ignites fresh torment from wounds I no longer have the luxury of cataloguing. Still, I claw forward desperately. Pain is ephemeral. Abandoning Daritus in this hour would haunt me forever. I'm still alive, and as long as I draw breath, I will fight at his side. Somehow I manage to gain my feet only through sheer force of will. My hand closes desperately around the hilt of a fallen sword. Weapon clutched under white knuckles, I raise the blade in defiance. The motion ignites fresh fire in my veins, but also rallies my flagging spirit. I can still fight. Though my swings are clumsy and wild with pain, Still they push back the crowding dark elves. I strike fiercely, pouring everything left within me into each ragged breath, each blow. Blood drips from the hilt, the cold metal biting my skin unheeded as we battle on. The dance stretches lifetimes yet mere heartbeats. Daritus's eyes widen. You can't fight like this. I don't have a choice. My wild strikes through the pain seem futile, barely keeping deadly blades at bay. Then suddenly the elf before me staggers, my sword buried in his throat. We both stare dumbly before he collapses boneless. The sight galvanizes Daritus. With a roar he seizes his foe and crushes the life from him with devastating force. Bones crack wetly as the elf is slammed earthward. In mere moments only one adversary remains. Though wounded, his pale eyes shine with cruel intent as they flick between us. A cornered beast is at his most vicious. I brace myself, raising my blade in defiance, but my limbs tremble violently now that deadly focus has ebbed. I cling desperately to fraying threads of consciousness. Sensing my faltering strength, Daritus shifts closer, guarding my weakened side. Our eyes meet. In this moment, we need no words. We will die side by side before being parted again. As the lone elf readies his final assault, Daritus and I ready our swords. Our eyes lock wordlessly. We step forward together into the fray. Let me be your hand, your strength, I rasp to Daritus through blood-flecked lips. I will be the limb he lost, the heart he needs, my soul to shield his own. The last of his hesitation melts away at my vow. Together we lift our blades high to meet the elf's desperate attack. And together we hold firm. We parry and retaliate as one being, one purpose. The elf fights with frenzied desperation, but we counter his every blow with calm synchronicity. Two souls, one unshakable bulwark. His rage does nothing, his blows are like air. With a final concerted shove, Daritus's sword pierces his heart. The elf's pale eyes go wide, disbelief at his defeat mirrored within, then empty and cold as he crumples brokenly. In the ringing aftermath, all I feel is overwhelming relief. Our heaving breaths mingle, the shared air sweet despite the carnage surrounding us. I meet Daritus's exhausted gaze, seeing my own bone-deep weariness reflected back, but also resilient joy shining through the lingering pain. We're alive. Cupping his face tenderly, I guide his lips to mine. Our kiss tastes of blood and loss, but also love and promise. The sword tumbles from my grip as my legs give out beneath me. I feel myself pitching forward, the ground rushing up. But Daritus's arm is there, catching me, lowering us gently together amidst the leaf litter and bloodied earth. I cling to him even as my head swims, anchoring myself against his broad chest. I have you, he whispers, breath heaving. You're safe. Adrenaline fading, the pain returns with a vengeance, no longer kept at bay by desperate focus. I curl tighter into Daritus with each new wave, taking comfort from the heat of his living body. Daritus enfolds me tenderly, our blood mingling freely between us. But the gore doesn't matter. My world narrows to the beat of his heart under my cheek, the iron grip of his arm around my shoulders. Time blurs as we lay entwined, hovering on the knife's edge between life and death. But the scales tip toward life with each shared breath, with the simple gift of not being alone at the precipice. I let my eyes drift shut, content.
Chapter 25, Daritus. I carry Savannah into camp, praying that I'm returning to a camp still in our control. The trees thin, and then the fires of camp come into view, flickering through the pre-dawn mist. I stumble out of the dense forest, and the first rays of sunlight filter through the tall trees, casting a golden glow on the camp ahead. My grip on Savannah tightens instinctively, but the sounds that reach us are not of battle, but relief, the cries of healing, of damage being mended. The distant sounds of battle have been replaced with cheers and celebrations, signaling that the fight is over and our side has emerged victorious. The fight is done and won somehow. I hobble towards our comrades, the pain from our wounds momentarily forgotten as we take in the sight of familiar faces and armor shining in the light. It's a new day, full of promise and hope. "I need a healer," I shout. Several orcs race toward the infirmary. All around, orcs are dispatching the last of the invading dark elves with efficient, coordinated strikes. No more hideous, pale faces leer from the shadows. We have rooted out every last monster that dared attack our sanctuary. It is finished. The rush of adrenaline and the sharp edge of fear that had enveloped us in the dark of night now gives way to a sense of awe and dizzying relief as the light grows stronger. I blink, disbelief threatening to cloud my senses, but there is no denying it. We have survived the onslaught. Savannah will live. She must. As quick as I can manage, I carry Savannah through the tattered remains of the camp towards the infirmary. Her weight feels heavy against my chest, but I refuse to let her fall. I whisper urgently, my voice filled with concern. Her face is ashen and strained, her eyes glassy with pain. "I will find a healer for you at once," I assure her. "I've already sent word to prepare for you." She only responds by burying her head on my shoulder, seeking comfort in my embrace. Her grip on me tightens, as if she fears losing me. "Don't leave me," she whimpers against my chest. A healer appears, her swift movements indicating a sense of urgency and concern. Gasping in dismay at the state of Savannah, the healer quickly assesses her wounds and begins to tend to them with utmost care. She had endured just as much hardship and pain as any soldier on this day, perhaps even more so. The healer takes us towards the infirmary tents, her gentle touch guiding us along the way. As we pass by others, their eyes widen in shock and awe at the sight of her injuries. The healer tries to guide just Savannah into a tent, but she resists weakly. "Only if Daritus can stay," she insists hoarsely. The healer hesitates, but I step forward. "I gave my word not to leave her side again. I will keep out of your way." "Very well, but you must rest soon too, Commander," the healer advises sternly. I nod, appeasing her, though in truth I feel no fatigue when Savannah's welfare hangs in the balance. Once settled on a cot, Savannah grasps my hand with surprising strength. "Promise you'll stay," she pleads, eyes shadowed with remembered loss. I smooth back her hair tenderly. "Wild beast could not drag me from this spot. I am here, beloved." I kiss her hand, relishing the warmth of life still within it. Her next words are whispered, but they pierce my heart with bittersweet joy. "I love you, Daritus, with all that I am." Emotion swells, a lump rising in my throat. I clasp her hand to my chest. "And I love you, Savannah, beyond reason or rhyme. You are my heart." Her smile outshines the rising sun before pain and blood loss claim her. But I will be here when she wakes, our love rising ever stronger for having endured the ultimate test. I lean closer, pausing with faces inches apart. Her eyes flutter closed in anticipation, and she bridges the gap, bringing her lips to mine. The kiss begins soft and reverent, a reaffirmation. All the fear, longing, and devotion we felt for each other is channeled into searing intimacy. With great restraint, I pull back, remembering her weakened state, but the taste and promise of her mouth lingers. "I love you," I whisper fervently. She smiles, her thumb tracing my bottom lip. No more need be said. They call out for healers to come and aid me as well, but I simply wave them off with a dismissive gesture. My own pains were nothing compared to what Savannah had been through. "See to the others first. Give this woman your utmost care," I say firmly. "My own bruises can wait. Savannah's need is most dire. I will not leave her side." "But sir, you're bleeding." I wave my hand, signaling I've heard enough of his concerns. With weak protests, Savannah tries to insist I get treated too, but I hush her gently. She has lost much blood. She is my sole priority now. Let them stitch my battered body later. I would withstand far worse if it meant her survival. For now, nothing else matters but seeing her cared for and resting safely. The trials ahead can wait. My place is here by her side, keeping a silent vigil by her side. As Savannah slips into exhausted sleep, the healers descend upon me, urging me to leave her side for treatment. I refuse with a fierce growl, clutching her limp hand. "Please, Commander, you need care too," the lead healer implores. I fix him with a blistering stare. "You will treat me here or not at all. I gave my oath not to leave her." "Don't be foolish, your injuries are nothing beside my vow," I snap, cutting him off. The healer shakes his head in exasperation. "At least take a cot next to hers so we can dress your wounds." I hesitate, loath to release her hand even to sleep. But I must regain some strength for her sake. "Do it quickly then," I concede reluctantly. They work on me efficiently as I lay awkwardly rigid, every sense straining for any change in Savannah's slow breaths. I flinch when they probe my gashes, but my focus remains fixed on her wan face. Soon I am bandaged and sutured within thumb's reach of her bed. Taking her hand again, I settle wearily beside her. Let exhaustion take me. I will rest here, keeping her company in spirit, if not body. My place is at her side, come what may. I murmur a soft vow to watch over her before surrendering to much-needed sleep. Chapter 26. Daritus. In the aftermath, there is no triumphant feast or joyful revelry to mark their survival. Rather, a somber determination fills the emptiness left by grief and fear. As Savannah slumbers, slowly regaining her strength, Moloch summons me. Despite his advanced age, his voice still carries the power and authority of a true leader. It echoes through the halls, driving home the gravity of their current situation. "The hour of reckoning has come," he declares grimly. "We must root out this menace, once and forever." Moloch's sharp orders send the able warriors out to scour the land, tirelessly seeking out any lingering traces of the dark elves who dared to attack their sanctuary. The concept of mercy died with that brutal assault. Now they will do whatever it takes to prevent such an intrusion from ever happening again. I nod resolutely as he finishes assigning troops. Though my healing arm twinges at the thought of combat, I can't help but notice I wasn't assigned. "I stand ready to serve," I say, approaching him. Moloch raises a hand, signaling for me to stop speaking. "Your duties are needed here, with our wounded," he says sternly. I can feel my frustration rising at being left behind, while others go out to hunt and protect our tribe. My lips part to argue, a surge of anger rising within me at the thought of being pushed away from the front lines of battle. But as I meet Moloch's unwavering gaze, my protest falters. His expression softens and his words carry a weight of wisdom. "You have given much, sacrificed more," he says, his voice gentle yet resolute. "Let others take up sword and bow. Keep our home and people safe." As his words sink in, my frustration dissipates like mist in the morning sun. He is right. Protecting life is far more important than taking it. And even though I may not be on the battlefield, my hands still hold the power to defend and protect our people. A reverent hush falls over the group of elders as I bow my head in submission. "I hear and obey, Elder," I speak with a tremor in my voice. We will be waiting for their return, my mind racing with worry for our comrades. Moloch offers me a reassuring squeeze on my shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. Around us, fighters clad in armor and weapons disappear into the morning mist. Left with strict instructions, they depart. As I return to my slumbering companion, Savannah, she stirs awake, her eyes opening like blooming flowers. She attempts to rise and greet me, but I gently push her back down. "Rest, my love," I whisper, stroking her hair tenderly. She humps, crossing her arms and pouting, trying to hold back a smile. "What is that face? You know I have a surprise for you, don't you?" I ask. My voice sounds light for the first time in months. Her eyes light up, curious. What could it be? Patience, my love. You'll find out later tonight, I say with a gentle chuckle. She pouts playfully, looking adorably frustrated. But I'm dying. Can't you give me a hint? You're not dying, and no hints. I can't resist her pouting lips and lean in to kiss them tenderly. Let's just enjoy the anticipation for now, I whisper against her lips, relishing in the sweet taste of her. She huffs in exaggerated annoyance, like I have just betrayed her. You're too stubborn. At least kiss me again to make the waiting easier. I happily oblige, kissing her tenderly as she sinks back into the pillows. We trade slow, languid kisses until I feel her breathing deepen into sleep mid-embrace. While she rests, I sneak away to prepare a special meal. Human delicacies I've been practicing alongside traditional Orcish cuisine. It's a surprise I hope will delight her. When the food is ready, I pack it into a basket and lay out a blanket in our meadow. Then I go collect Savannah, guiding the curious but still recovering woman to the meadow without revealing my plans. Her eyes light up when she sees the candlelit picnic I've set up. You made all this? She asks in wonder, inhaling the aroma of fresh bread. I feel suddenly self-conscious. I had to reteach myself how to cook with one arm and thought I'd try learning some human recipes, I explain with a shrug. After you were in the hospital the first time for not feeding yourself, I was determined to make sure it never happened again. Savannah tries a stuffed pastry and moans ecstatically. This is incredible! I never knew you could cook so finely. I grin, heart swelling at her happiness. Even old warriors need new skills sometimes. We pass the evening enjoying the food and most of all each other's company. Her joy illuminates the meadow far more than the flickering candles. All the work is rewarded 100-fold by her smile. Savannah mischievously steals a bite of dessert from my plate. Is that sweet cake? She asks impishly. I make an exaggerated show of guarding my plate. Maybe it was before a certain thief stole a piece, I retort in mock affront. I just wanted a taste, Savannah protests with exaggerated innocence. Batting her eyelashes coquettishly, she leans closer. Don't I deserve a little treat? I pretend to consider gravely before breaking into a grin. Very well, you little minx. I offer her the last bite, which she accepts with an exaggerated moan of delight. You're utterly spoiled, you know that? I chuckle, nudging her playfully. Savannah shrugs, eyes sparkling. Perhaps, but you enjoy indulging me anyway. She kisses the corner of my mouth. Guilty, I admit happily. Her teasing playfulness awakens my lighter spirits. No matter what lies ahead, we will face it with levity and joy sustaining us. As we laugh together, a realization strikes me. I cannot remember the last time I smiled so freely, I admit to Savannah. Even without an arm, with you I feel whole again. She squeezes my hand, her expression tender. Overhead, a shooting star suddenly flashes across the night sky. Savannah gasps delightedly. Quick, make a wish! She closes her eyes, face scrunched in concentration. While her eyes are shut, I discreetly slip a ring from my pocket and kneel, my heart pounding. When Savannah opens her eyes and turns back to me, she gasps again, hands flying to her mouth. Savannah, you are the light that guides me out of the darkness, I begin hoarsely. You are the missing piece I never knew was lacking, I begin earnestly. With you, I feel complete. Will you make me the happiest orc in the land by becoming my mate? A spark of pure joy ignites in her eyes, glistening with tears of happiness. She throws her arms around me, holding on tightly as if she never wants to let go. Yes, she exclaims with unbridled excitement. Of course I will be your mate. Nothing could make me happier. Then it is settled, I declare as I set her down gently. We shall be bound before the clan, 2 lives woven as one from this day onward. Relief floods through my body, releasing the tension that had been building inside me. Elation washes over me like a warm wave, and I can't help but lift and spin Savannah in a joyous dance. Her laughter rings out like bells, filling the air with radiant sound. She pulls me into a fierce kiss before crying happily. No wish could be greater than this dream made real under the stars.
Chapter 27. Savannah. My head whirls with intense emotion as he pulls me close, his arm enveloping me in a warm embrace. His lips meet mine with an insatiable hunger, as if I am the one thing he has been searching for all his life. Right now, nothing else seems to matter. The fear and danger of my recent brush with death fades into the background, replaced by overwhelming love and passion. I'm to be married to the man of my dreams. Despite being surrounded by chaos and despair, our connection is so intense that it feels as if we are the only two people in existence. We are enveloped in our own little bubble of bliss, lost to the outside world. My mate. His warm body embraces mine, providing a sense of protection and stability that I've desired for so long. I love you so much, I whisper, my voice barely audible over the sound of his gentle breathing. He grunts between savage kisses, claiming me as his mate with each touch of his lips. Mine, he growls, possessively pulling me closer. Getting a little hot in here, isn't it? Looks like we've hit a scene that's just too fiery for YouTube. For the uncut, unabridged version, visit worldsofprotheka.com and enter code YouTube30 for a scorching deal. Let's dive back into the story. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy,
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
these monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires,
demons,
dark elves,
gods.
minotaurs, creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks,
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks,
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka Fantasy Romance Bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless. Chapter 28. Savannah. I stand in a ray of sunlight as my friends help prepare me for the ceremony. Careful hands arrange my hair, while another applies soft makeup to my face. I feel like royalty, though we are far from a palace. My thoughts drift back over the winding path that brought us to this joyous day. So much hardship endured, so much still left to heal. But together, Daritus and I persevered through the darkest nights. Our love only grew stronger for having been tested. I don the exquisite ceremonial clothing Daritus gifted me, welcoming me into ancient Orcish traditions. The embroidered silks complement the gleaming necklace and armbands, symbolizing my new status as his mate. Despite our differences, he and his clan embrace me fully on this day, making their traditions my own. I trail my fingers over the intricate needlework stitched lovingly by the village women, yet another sign of their acceptance. Hold still, I'm almost done with your braids, Zella instructs as she deftly weaves strands of my hair. I wince as she tugs a bit too hard. Sorry, she says. I want them to be perfect for your big day. My friend Yara looks up from sorting through makeup powders and giggles. With how fancy you're getting done up, I might steal you away from Daritus myself. I swat her arm playfully as Zella laughs. Oh, stop. I'm sure I don't look that grand. Are you joking? You're utterly radiant, Zella proclaims. Daritus is going to swallow his tongue when he sees you. my cheeks warm at the compliment as Yara starts applying a shimmering shadow to my eyes. "There, a beautiful bride for your handsome groom," she declares with satisfaction. Handing me a mirror, she asks, "Well, what do you think?" I behold the elegant woman staring back at me. "You two are miracle workers," I proclaim in delighted awe. I gather them in an impulsive hug. "Thank you, my dearest friends." My steps are slow and measured as I walk down the petal-strewn aisle on Daritus's arm. But inside, my heart threatens to burst right out of my chest with its wild hammering. I cling tighter to him, anchoring my nerves. The scent of smoke from ornate braziers mingles with earthy herbs scattered according to ancient Orcish tradition. Tribesmen beat hand drums, their rhythms echoing the steady march forward toward my destiny. We pass beneath an arch adorned with symbols of valour, strength, and fidelity, the sacred markings of Daritus's clan. I keep my eyes fixed straight ahead, rather than meet the many green-skinned gazes of the clan gathering to share in our joy. Only my beloved matters now. As we reach the altar of carved tusks and stone, Daritus turns to me, his sage eyes full of tender emotion. The officiant binds our wrists with a leather cord and begins the guttural chanting that will join us as mates until the end of our days. My steps are slow and measured as I walk down the petal-strewn aisle on Daritus's arm, but inside, my heart threatens to burst right out of my chest with its wild hammering. I cling tighter to him, anchoring my nerves. The scent of smoke from ornate braziers mingles with earthy herbs scattered according to ancient Orcish tradition. Tribesmen beat hand drums, their rhythms echoing the steady march forward toward my destiny. We pass beneath an arch adorned with symbols of valour, strength, and fidelity, the sacred markings of Daritus's clan. I keep my eyes fixed straight ahead, rather than meet the many green-skinned gazes of the clan gathering to share in our joy. Only my beloved matters now. As we reach the altar of carved tusks and stone, Daritus turns to me, his sage eyes full of tender emotion. The officiant binds our wrists with a leather cord and begins the guttural chanting that will join us as mates until the end of our days. The officiant nods to Daritus to begin his vows. He clears his throat and gazes deeply into my eyes. "Savannah, my beloved mate and partner. Together we have weathered storms that would break weaker spirits. But our bond only grew stronger, even when events conspired to drive us apart." Daritus's voice fills with emotion. "You renewed my sense of hope when all seemed lost. Your courage and compassion inspire me daily. With you, I am home." He lifts my hand to his heart. "I pledge to honour and protect you, to nurture our love, to fight by your side, always. This I vow before my ancestors, my clan, and the warming light that is your presence." Tears of joy slip down my cheeks as I mouth, "I love you." Daritus brushes them away tenderly, promise shining in his eyes. We are two souls now, inextricably joined through joy and strife. Daritus, my dearest love, from the moment you came into my life, I sensed our bond was something extraordinary. I have to pause and take a shuddering breath as emotions threaten to overwhelm me. Daritus gives my hand a reassuring squeeze. Composed again, I continue on. "We found each other in darkness and pulled one another into the light. Your strength and wisdom nourished my weary spirit when I felt spent and hollow." Gazing into his beloved face, I make my solemn vow. I pledge to ever be your companion and solace, to stand steadfast at your side through all life may bring. My heart, my soul, are yours eternally, my mate. Daritus pulls me into a searing kiss before the officiant completes the ceremony. As the officiant concludes the ancient rite, a weight seems to lift from my spirit. After everything, all this day represents nearly brings me to my knees. I turn to Daritus with joyful tears coursing down my cheeks. "We made it, my love," I whisper through quivering lips, We endured. Daritus clasps me close, his breathing uneven with emotion as well. Now we begin life anew, together. We stand entwined, his strength supporting me as sobs of happiness rack my frame. The enormity of our union after so much tragedy and separation overwhelms me utterly. But within Daritus's embrace, I have found my true home and sanctuary at long last. Cheers erupt around us, but they fade into the background. This moment belongs solely to us two weary souls who defied the fates to reach this blissful day. The celebratory feast passes in a blur of revelry and well wishes from friends. My cheeks ache from smiling and laughing as we relive fond memories and tell amusing tales. No shadows cling to our hearts tonight. Musicians strike up a lively tune, and Daritus pulls me to my feet. I practically float across the grass, giddy as he swings me around the glowing bonfire. Our eyes meet often, speaking silently of promises kept and dreams ignited. Under the stars, we dance with joyful abandon, shedding fully the burdens of the past. His hands anchor me as we whirl faster and faster. Tonight, we are carefree new mates welcoming the future, leaving heartache behind forever. The revelry stretches late into the night as we feast and dance in celebration with our friends. But eventually Daritus meets my eyes with a simmering look and, sweeping me up in his arms, steals me away from the merriment. We practically tumble into our quarters in our eagerness, all pretense and patience forgotten. Our lovemaking is tender yet impassioned, the culmination of all the deferred longing between us. We take the time to savour every touch, every union of flesh. After, I lay tangled against Daritus, our hearts still hammering in tandem. Together we marvel at the astonishing journey that brought us to this night, wrapped safely in each other's arms. The struggles simply fade away in the afterglow of our intimacy. I gaze up at my mate in wonder, hardly believing this powerful, compassionate orc is now mine for all our days. But his eyes hold the same awe and devotion as he caresses my cheek, as though uncertain I am real. Here, cradled against his broad chest, I have found my true home. As sleep begins to gently claim us both, we share whispered dreams for the future, a humble home filled with laughter, friends often visiting, and many adventures together with peace secured. The coming days unfold bright with promise and purpose side by side. I settle into his embrace with a soft sigh, our legs tangled comfortably beneath the furs. As I drift off, Daritus's steady heartbeat in my ear, I give thanks to whatever gods may be for this perfect bliss. Tonight our new chapter begins.
Chapter 29. Daritus. The sunlight wakes me earlier than I planned the next morning. At first I fight it, burying my face into Savannah's shoulder. Her hair tickles my cheeks, and I drag her warm body back against mine, nuzzling into the warmth. You won't have to go far for the exciting conclusion and the happily ever after moment for our lovers. Head over to worldsofprotheka.com and use code YouTube30 for all the delicious detail in the unabridged, much spicier version than we can show you. Thanks for reading.